And we should be live. John from JRDF. How's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going good. It's early morning, but it's fine.
You
I
woke
have
up
coffee. It's all
at
good.
4 a.m. It's 4 a.m. your time right now. Is that right? T-
It is. It is. In good old Englandshire, it is 4 in the morning. I was saying to you before the stream, this is the first time I've had to do this since I've been on Grey-Headed Gamer's show. It takes me back to my early days of Star Citizen being on podcasts. It's great.
Well, thank you so much for doing that. Like I was saying, I don't know too many people who would make a sacrifice of getting up at 4 in the morning just to talk on a podcast. What did you used to do with Gray-Headed Gamer? I wasn't aware that you guys worked together.
Yeah, no. So Gray is the person guilty of getting me into Star Citizen in the first place. I stumbled across one of his YouTube videos. He used to do this YouTube video series called Star Citizen Island when he used to play around with CryEngine. And he basically made this island in CryEngine as a level and would just load
Right.
in the Holoviewer models to sort of give a sense of scale of the ships. And I can't even remember how I stumbled across one of his videos, and that was my first sort of like knowledge of Star Citizen. So I started watching his streams, and he basically watching his Twitch show sort of got me educated in Star Citizen. And we were we were redoing our living room at the time, and I listened to like all the back vods of his sort of from the earliest one that he had still on Twitch, and sort of learnt about Star Citizen a wee bit. So that was good. And then later on, we became friends, and I went on his Not So Sober Saturday show 3 or 4 times, I think, talking about projects that I'd done. So the first one I did was the GSS locker, which was the first ever Star Citizen build I did. And then I went back on his show sort of a couple more times after we'd done events and stuff, just to talk people through it and do a bit of the background to the events and things before we used to stream ourselves and really had any kind of social media stuff of our own. And now we basically ripped off his show. An hour stream on a Sunday is basically Not So Sober Saturday, where we get makers on and just talk about making stuff. So yeah, he was a big influence to us, and yeah, still my favorite streamer. Gotta admit.
So speaking of making stuff, you have kind of this perspective as being a maker. Is that correct?
Yes,
Tell
I
me more
like to
about that. I'm curious because Elon
yeah,
Musk had mentioned that before.
I like the term maker. It's I don't know where it came from or where it was first coined, in it, but it's a relatively widely used term now. I probably get it from Adam Savage. I'm a huge Adam Savage fan, and he
Same
definitely
here.
categorizes himself as a maker, and it's like, yeah, that fits. It's I like making everything. We built our own house. We, you know, we I'm from Yorkshire, and we don't like spending money. And as a result, I've always just wanted to make things myself. As a result, you end up not having a lot of stuff sometimes because you refuse to spend the money on it, because you could make it better yourself for less, but then you never actually have time to make it. So you just end up never having it. But yeah, I still like making everything. And same with cows as well, because I think both of us were a bit tight with money, to be honest. And yeah, I prefer to be a maker rather than tight. I think that's probably a nicer way of describing it. But we've made, I say, we built our own house. Everything we do with JRDF, we are making. And I know it sounds like a daft thing, but we are trying to internalize and bring in house as many of the processes of making the products as possible. We outsource as little as we can. And this last year we've brought 2 or 3 more processes in house so we can make it ourselves, and we genuinely do think that you get a better product and a lot more satisfaction out of the thing if you've actually physically made it rather than just farmed it out and done the logistics of having it made by someone else. I mean, that to me is just my worst case scenario, is having to outsource stuff, because I have to do all the rubbish bits, all the admin and the design work, and then try and get someone else to make it like it's in my head. And what I am terrible at is any form of design briefs to be able to pass on to people, trying to put down what's in my head and my vision for a project or a thing, and try and communicate that to someone else, I am horrific at it. So most of the time, I just find it easier just to do the whole process, design to manufacture, because then I don't have to explain myself to anybody. I know how I want to do it, and I'll change that as I go along. But at least I don't have to explain it to anybody apart from Cal's, and she doesn't understand half the time, and she just ends up just getting bored and nodding, and just letting me get on with it. Um, or she'll go, "No, that sounds really expensive. You're not allowed to do that." So they're the two options, really.
I wonder if this you could be talking about a movement actually. Like, do you see maybe over the next 10 years, 20 years that people start building a lot more of their own things? That makers may be the future?
It's an interesting one. I mean, one of the things I never wanted to get into was 3D printing. So rewind back a few years when I was doing in 2017 when we did the Raven, and I was very much an event because my background's in doing events, doing big trade stands. Used to work for a company. We used to do sort of half-acre trade stands for companies, and that was boring for its own reasons, because there were huge events, but not from a design point of view, quite dull. And that's how I got into doing the Star Citizen builds, because I was bored. I had some spare materials and a bit of spare time, and decided, you know what, I'm going to do a Star Citizen project. So that's why I built the GSS unit in the first place and took it to Con, our sort of UK fan event. Um, and at that time, everything I was building was huge for trade stands. So it was all made of timber, all done on CNC machines. And I felt like that was my niche, because not many people had access to CNC machines and years of experience in using them to make huge things. So back then, when I was doing the Raven and that stuff, I was like, no, 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 I don't want to ever do 3D printing, because everyone else has 3D printers. And it's like there is this amazing maker movement of people making all their own stuff all the time. So I wanted to actually sort of steer away from that, so I wasn't competing against all that. And then one thing led to another. We ended up with 3D printers because of the Kraken. But now that we're into that 3D printing community, it is very, very different to where we were before, because before I wasn't really inside a makers community. The sort of events industry doesn't have that kind of um, sort of give and take community, because you all your competitors, so you don't tend to share things and discuss stuff with other companies, because you want to stay as good as you can above them. But once I got into the 3D printing and really injecting myself into the the amount of free stuff online, free models, people just wanting to have this, just this sort of collective of stuff that anyone can make, it is really eye-opening. And I like it. I think that as a manufacturing engineer, I feel a little bit scared that people will sort of take over. It's a bit like news media. I don't want the maker community of the world to take over from traditional manufacturer of things necessarily, because I think that sometimes people who do it for a living do it better. And you have that sort of quality assurance and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want it to replace it, but I do see a time when people are going back to making stuff with their own hands. I think this is what the computer generation missed a little bit, in that we stopped making things ourselves. At least things like 3D printers and the sort of more sort of internet, sort of not necessarily Twitch. I know there is some maker stuff on Twitch, but mainly YouTube, Pinterest, all this sort of stuff is really getting people into. Oh, I could totally make that instead of buying it from China or um, eBay or wherever. So yes, I do think it is a really progressive movement. I look forward to see where it goes.
I originally went to school for cooking, and
Nice.
food service is really a close thing of mine. I don't know if I don't know if I considers me a maker per se or not, but one thing that I'm really passionate about is 3D printing food. How far away do you think we are from 3D printed food?
Um, it was interesting. You are a maker, according to Adam Savage, and I would agree with him. So, if you've not read Adam Savage's book that he put out last year, the first chapter is basically, if you create anything, you are a maker, and it's and for anyone who isn't in Adam Savage's tested Discord, which has started up relatively recently, I would thoroughly recommend that. And there is a whole channel in that for food, and it is very cool. 3D printing food. Um, the issue with 3D, the word 3D printing, is that it's banded about a huge amount. And 3D printing is such a wide sort of description um, of that manufacturing method, and it covers an awful lot of stuff. So there is already food 3D printers, but effectively all they are is a chocolate nozzle on a CNC machine that sort of draws with chocolate or something similar. It's not really creating food, it's just sort of drawing with it, if that makes sense. So you can make some cool cakes and things like that, but you are still having to put your actual cooked material, your mixed materials into it. How long will it be before 3D printers are actually taking core ingredients and putting them together to create sort of three-dimensional food experiences? I don't really know. And I'm not really sure whether it's something that would improve on what we have at the moment. I think we're more likely to go down the route of just mechanizing burger flippers and things like that, and having food outlets that are entirely staffed by robots. I mean, they did trial that in the US, I think, a couple of
Yeah,
years ago. It may well come back given the current situation, so they can have
definitely.
people-free food experiences. Whether it's better or worse, I'm not quite sure.
I think it'd be
It's
better. As a cook, I would say that as controversial it might be, I think having robots in the kitchen would be great. But like, they'd have to be very nimble. Like, they'd have to be those ones you see from like Boston Dynamics, you know, like
yeah.
very
I
versatile.
mean,
It doesn't take a lot of force. It just takes the
no.
nimbleness.
I mean, I must admit, I did my apprenticeship at a food factory because it was the sort of biggest employer
That's
in the
cool.
sort of city I grew up in, and I did my apprenticeship basically in line automation. So we got to play around with the sort of big seven-axis robot heads and things that we were looking at getting, and the things that they could do were just blew my mind as a kid. It was just they you could program them to do anything. We could buy old second-hand ones from the automotive industry and reprogram them to use in the food industry. Um, but they were the biggest issue with them was there was no sensory feedback at that time. So they could do whatever you wanted them to do, but they couldn't watch themselves doing it. So they could start making a mistake and start making horrific things occur on a food line and just keep going. They didn't really care. There was no you've missed that, you've thrown it on the floor. It was just, or there is something wrong with that thing you've just picked up. There is, it's only half of it or something like that. And it just doesn't know. It just continues to work. So I think we're quite a long way off having entirely mechanized everything. And I think food's one of those things that you do need your senses with food because it's, you're dealing with a product that has a lot of, yeah, a lot of variance in it.
Yeah,
But
for
as you
sure.
say, it, the future is mainly mechanized, I think, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, provided that there's loads of other jobs for us all to do. I think we're a hugely long way away from that sort of futuristic utopia where none of us has to work.
Hmm.
I suspect we'll get to the point where loads of stuff has been mechanized before we get to the point where everyone just lives because this amazing life in New Babbage sort of scenario. Um, it's interesting though how much, like, how little amount of mechanization there is in Star Citizen, and I suppose a lot of that's narrative, so that you still have lots of people in it, but there's no droids. And I don't know if that's a Chris Roberts thing that he doesn't like droids. He's a bit like a Mandalorian and just hates them. Um, but I kind of expected there to be some form of little robots running around in Star Citizen.
Well, you know what? That makes me think like, it's a 950, 930. I always forget, years into the future. I mean, maybe it's a romantic thing, maybe. You know,
Mm.
now have the option to cook. I mean, I would love to cook at an 890 jumper. Are you kidding me? I'd love to be
Yeah,
working in kitchen. It would be so much fun. Like, even the kitchen we
absolutely.
have now, it's like, I looked at it, I'm like, it's not half bad. It's better than what I have now. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean the luxury ships and stuff. I think they have done a really good job, and you look around some of the things like the kitchens and the medi bays and all this sort of stuff that's there and just looks pretty at the moment. But when you look really closely at it, you sort of go, yeah, a lot of this has been really thought out with functionality going forward in mind. We will be using all this stuff at some point, and that excites me. That's the thing that really sort of gets me. Um, Sort of spurred up for Star Citizen in that you can see the depth of it all the time, even though all those mechanics aren't there. You can see the depth of it, and yeah, I just can't wait. And that's the thing. We're still so far away from it all being finished, having all those cooking mechanics in, because you know damn well the mechanics to make a bacon sandwich is going to be really low down the list, but it will be there
It
eventually.
might not be. That's the thing. Like, man, there's a lot of fidelity in eating. Surprise.
Yes, yeah,
So,
yeah,
cooking April 1st, 2022.
yeah. But yeah, no, we will get there. I mean, having the food mechanic at all is great. Having to be able to eat, and I don't know what other people's opinions are, but I think the amount that we have to eat and drink is about spot on.
Yeah, I think it's
It
pretty good
it
too.
feels right.
I
Yeah,
agree. Such a pain in the neck, but it's like, okay, been a couple of days.
yeah. No, that's it. It's. I think once you can buy food everywhere, that will make a difference. And I think the biggest thing is being able to store food on your ship. It's that whole thing of running around the ship that's got loads of food everywhere, but that's not food you can eat. You have to go to Microtech to buy a sandwich, even though there's perfectly good fruit over there. Once all that's ironed out, I think it'll be great. But I like the survival mechanic aspect to it. If you're on a hot planet or a cold planet, and like then it becomes a real issue. But as you say, just wandering around in places like New Babbage, a couple of days you might have to eat or drink in Star Citizen. I think it's spot on, absolutely spot on. Um, and I don't think CIG get the credit when they get it
I
really
know.
right. So,
Isn't that
you
true, man?
know,
I feel so bad about that. It
I don't
really
think they really listen, to be honest, to
you
the
can't.
moaning.
You can't be bothered by that. That's the thing. You gotta survive it, you know?
I think the other thing is most of the devs just ignore it. Oh, they're not. Most of the
Yeah.
devs we talk about have no clue what's going on in the community at all
Thank
because they just head down,
thank the gods
getting
for
on with
that.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them don't actually know what's happening in Star Citizen in general. They're so, because it's such a huge team of people that's split down into teams, and there's teams within that. They're so focused on their bit. They know exactly what's going on in their department, and they're working. Like when you go far enough down the dev chain to say like props team is a great example, they're working on props for perhaps two patches ahead of them because the props need to be there so the environment can build the environments and all that kind of stuff. So they are working so far ahead of where the community are whinging about stuff that it's just so disconnected from their day to day. It's just not on their radar at all, which I think is a great thing
Great
because
thing, because they don't need that noise. They have enough.
no. Oh God, we bitch and moan about everything. I'm
Everything.
sure, yeah, everything. I'm sure, to be honest, I think they now get to the stage where they're all thick enough skinned, and it's just like, I mean, one of my best friends at CIG is Corey Bamford from the props team. Um, he was the first person I really met at Star Citizen because he designed the GSS unit, which is the first prop I built. So I wanted to meet him, and we got on really, really well. And he's the one that did the bobblehead stream, and it's just like, oh, Corey, the amount of stick there's in the community. He wasn't even aware that there was any stink about it. Just like, good for you. He was just getting on with his day. And like everything else, it's just like these guys get like a day's notice to come on. Oh, by the way, you're on Star Citizen Live. Be at your desk by this amount and have something to do. And it's just like, okay. And it's a
Yeah.
bit like us. It's like one of the things that we struggle a bit with our streams is there's so much stuff that we're doing but we can't show you live, and that's the issue that they have as well. All the stuff they're working on they can't show you, so they have to sort of pick a random thing to do that isn't something they're actually currently working on. And that is difficult because your head's in the game of doing something and you're really excited about that thing. It's like we've got a big new project that started in the last week or so, that's going to slow down our JRDF stuff quite a bit. But it's really cool, but we can't tell anybody about it until it's all done and out in the world. And that's it's annoying, and it's the reason why when we started streaming, we said, please don't subscribe to us, because we might just disappear for 3-4 months at a time if we get a big job in. Because again, there's only two of us, especially in the days of COVID, we can't bring other people in anymore. So we have to do everything ourselves. So sometimes it completely takes over your life if you get a big project. But obviously no events at the moment. That is a bit rubbish. I was kind of looking forward to CitizenCon this year.
Same
Um,
here.
it's one of those things. It's like we had no guarantee we were going. Well, we would have gone to sell models, if nothing else, probably.
Mm.
I saw Westbrook Drew in chats. Worst case scenario, he would have been there selling our models, because he is our greatest salesman ever, um, no doubt. But the the thing that annoys me most about no CitizenCon this year is I would expect and would want them to do next year in LA, because otherwise the US will miss out on CitizenCon for a cycle, so it won't be coming back to Europe for another year. So it'll be another year's wait to get CitizenCon back in Europe. So that's a bit rubbish. Because I fancy Germany again, because I like Germany.
I've never been to
Uh,
Germany before. Went to Manchester. That was my first time crossing the pond.
oh, really?
Yep.
Manchester's nice. It's a good northern city, so I approve of it. But
Cold, man. Coldest place I've ever been.
really,
Yep. I've been at
no, it's not
negative
that
50
cold.
too, and I
Uh,
thought that place was much colder. Just gets to your
it
bones.
it's damp.
Yeah.
The UK is cold and damp. I think that's we had Rye over for CitizenCon, and he was like, "It's cold." It's like, you live in Canada too. It's like, what's it? But it's like, it's a dry cold over there. So yeah, okay, it's wet and cold. It's winter, and it wasn't a nice winter last year. It was just a wet winter, but we are sort of used to it. It is kind of miserable, um, but we're Northerners, so we like it miserable. We like to moan about
I
stuff.
can understand that.
Yeah, it's lovely. But Germany, for anyone who hasn't been to Germany, Germany is an absolutely phenomenal country to visit. I used to go there an awful lot um, with the last company I worked with, because Germany is placed very centrally in Europe. It's also got quite a lot of money. It's probably the richest European country. And those two things together mean that you have a huge amount of the big European events there, because it's really easy for everyone to get to Germany. It's got some amazing facilities, and it's why Gamescom's there. And, Gamescom's not unique. Every single industry has their massive trade events in Germany, pretty much. So we used to go there all the time. And it's just the best place to do event work I've ever been in my life, because the Germans have no health and safety at all.
That's
It's
good.
just, it's just like I used to forget when I would when it'd been a while, and then we'd go to Germany, and we'd in England or Scotland, you turn up at an event, you have to be wearing steel toe cap shoes, you have to be in high vis, you have to have, all the things. You walk into an event place in Germany, no one's in high vis, everyone's wearing sandals, everyone's drinking, smoking, and just getting on with it. No one dies. And it's not a party, but it's so lovely and laid back. And you get a lot of setup time in Germany as a general rule. So like Gamescom, there's a 2-week build window. You can have 2 weeks to build your stand. It's amazing. So people rock up and they set a table up in the middle of the stand, and every lunchtime they will stop work and sit down and have lunch together as a team building the stand. And it's just such a nice atmosphere. I absolutely love it. So the more events we can do in Germany, the better. I mean, CitizenCon was fine because it was a Star Citizen event. So yes, there's a bit of health and safety you have to follow, but at the end of the day, you're not being yelled at for it all the time, because
Mm.
you've hired the whole venue, so it's yourself yelling at you. So it's fine. But you go to a lot of event venues in the UK, and you just constantly yelled at by health and safety people, and it drives me nuts.
I actually got yelled at by a security guy in Austin. And I'd never been yelled at before. I'm like, I was when he did it, I was actually really shocked. I'm like, what's happening right now? I was so confused. Looked at him like a deer in headlights.
What did you
So,
get shouted at for?
cause I was running, I ran past security. I was tearing down my booth, and I ran past security because they like the doors were locked. I'm like, hold the
Mm.
door, and I wasn't supposed to do that, I guess. So the guy chased me down. I don't know. faster than him. So,
Dear. Austin was interesting. It was the first time I'd ever been to the States. Um, the weather was horrific. Just a moment about the weather. That was the worst weather I've ever experienced in my life. I don't like the heat. I
oh, I
don't know
was saying it
how
was
I'd.
beautiful. Was
Oh no,
you're
it's
used to the
terrible.
cold, hey?
Yeah, I like cold and miserable. I don't.
Ah,
The thing in my head though, I don't know why, and this is so ridiculous. For some reason, I got Texas mixed up with Nevada. From a point of
mm.
view of it's a dry heat. For some reason, I had in my head that Austin was going to be a dry heat. And when I stepped off Callie will tell you, I stepped out the airport. She was ahead of me because she needed a fag because we'd been in the air and security for about 12 hours at this point. So she nipped out for a fag, and she loved that kind of temperature. But she knew as soon as I walked out of that airport, I was just going to want to walk back in because it hit you like a wall. It was like 100% humidity all the time you were there. Just like, oh, I just can't do this.
Mm.
It was a really good job because this is when we did the Dragonfly, the full size Dragonfly, and the Kraken, the 1/72 Kraken. And because we'd had to air freight all that over, we had to make sure there was a good buffer just in case they got held up in customs or there was an issue or something. So we sent it out 2 weeks before the event. And just in case there had been an issue or something that got damaged in transit or something, we went out a week beforehand so that we had a bit of a buffer to fix problems if they'd arise. Um, so we were there for a week, sort of semi-work, semi-holiday. Um, and if we hadn't had that, I would just not have acclimatized at all. Because, of course, the Dragonfly was set up outside, so I couldn't even hide in the air-conditioned building. It was just like, oh, it was horrid, absolutely horrid. So yeah, much prefer to do an event in Canada in under a foot of snow. That
Yikes!
would be
I mean,
amazing. Oh, it'd be so good. Well, I mean, when we used to do events down in the south of Germany, in sort of Black Forest region, you get a lot of snow down there as well, and the buildings are sort of curved so that the snow just falls off it. So you end up with these huge snow drifts outside. You just have to sort of move them out of the way with your forklift, and then sort of make a hole, and then get your truck in. And all. I loved it. I love messing around in the snow though. So yeah, it'd be perfect environment would be Canada, I think, for weather. If I could pick any country for weather, it'd be Canada. It's You have proper summers and proper winters is what I see from it. Um, you get actual seasons, whereas in the UK, a lot of the time we just sort of get drizzle for 12 months of the year.
I really think climate change has changed that. I lived in a lot of places in Canada, and the weather's pretty different. Like I think in
Hmm.
Ontario, you only have 2 seasons. BC is like British Columbia is like Minecraft. The biomes are so incredibly small, and it has like every biome over the whole like geography. No, I'm
Nice.
serious. It's so weird. But like nothing's really consistent, I find. That's the thing. So, by the way, if they were to do a CitizenCon, they'd probably do it in like Montreal or Ottawa. So,
Yeah, I do want I would like them to do citizen cons in more places. Um, because I get the logic of why they do it in the 4 locations because that's where their offices are. And back in the day, although COVID may change this, um, back in the day, it made a lot of sense when it was a smaller company to do it near the office because then at least a big trench of your employees that needed to go to the event didn't have to travel around the world to get there. But the amount of people they bring from the other offices to that location and the amount they spend on the events now, because they're huge events, that travel cost and the hotels of those 20, 30 devs that they need from that office sort of pales it into insignificance. So you'd be better going to where the fan base is rather than where the office is, I think. Um, so it'll be interesting because I mean, I think the best example is Paris. I mean, there is such a big Star Citizen community in France, but they'll never do an event there because they don't have an office there. And I think that's a bit sad because the French community are one of the most
same with
passionate we've ever
Australia
come
too.
across.
Same with
Yeah.
Australia.
So it'd be nice to do an official event in those, even if it's not a full blown Citizen Con, but just do an official event in these. Like to do the concierge event in Paris would be amazing, and they'd sell that out very very quick. So I hope they go around a little bit and just get out their head of just the four core places. Saying that, there is advantages to. I mean, I do think Manchester Central was the best venue they've had for a CitizenCon. Um, I don't know how you found Manchester versus Austin for the event.
They're different. They're just the whole thing about those two events. They're just so dramatically different. Like it was about the Carrick, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
It was basically
Yes.
Carrick versus Kraken, and I was like, "Hey, cool, a new ship." Honestly, I think you were the star of Austin. You know, bringing those
The
models out
Dragonfly
there.
was good. I like the
I ne-
Dragonfly.
I never got to sit on the Dragonfly, by the way.
There's a lot of people that said. I mean, we had just over 700 people sit on it in the day, which I thought was amazing. We were solid on that thing all day. It was great. The sad thing is all the work and effort that went into it, and it came out for one day, and then it went back in the box, and it's just like,
Yeah,
and it was supposed to go to the studio, and it never did. um, because when we started the project, they were expanding the Austin office at Bee Cave, and they had a slot set out for it, and that's where it was going to go. And then by the time we finished the project and finished CitizenCon, they employed so many more new people because they put their merch team there and they put their social media team there. They didn't have room for it anymore. So it stayed in a box, and it's still in a box. We tried to bring it back from Manchester, um, but unfortunately, the British government put pay to that, because we exported it originally for Austin. We'd have to import it back into the UK, which meant we'd have to pay VAT on it. So you'd have to pay 20% of its build cost just to bring it back, plus shipping. So it became an immensely expensive exercise to bring it back. So hopefully it'll be in LA next year, if it's LA next year.
can
Because
I uh, can I suggest a possible upgrade for it?
yes, absolutely.
I think that you should put a little motor on the bottom on a pole with a little
Yeah.
coin dispenser, and then
So
you
just
know,
sort of rides a little bit.
like they used to have in the malls. You know, do they have those in the UK? And then make it
They do.
applicable for 200-kilogram grown men.
I mean, yeah, that there was some big people in Austin. That's
Just safety.
gotta
That's
be
all I'm
said.
saying.
Yeah, there were some big people in Austin. I don't know what I expected, but yeah, and it survived the day though. There was a few little bits of wear and tear on it, with that many people clambering all over it, but it did pretty well. I would like to repaint it as well, because back then everything we painted sort of looked fresh out the showroom, and we were a bit against time because we had 3 months to do the Kraken and the Dragonfly, um, so we were very tight on time. So the paint job was like a fresh paint job, whereas now we've done quite a lot on sort of paint wear effects with the paint we use, and it's awkward because the paint we use is a two-part catalyst chemical paint, for wood, to make it bomb proof, and it's great for events because you can throw the stuff around, it cleans up really nicely, and it looks. I mean, whenever I go into the office in Wimslow, to the CIG office, the desks that we built for Gamescom are in there, and they still look like we just painted them. They're absolutely amazing, and they get used every day, day in, day out. But it looks a very clean, fresh paint, and you can't do when you're doing sort of like prop making. You'll take a silver paint and sort of dry rag silver onto the edges of things, and to give that sort of like worn through effect, and it doesn't work with this paint, because of the way the thinner melts the coat underneath. It sort of deliberately melts the coat that you're spraying it onto, so it binds really, really well. So the only way we've managed to do it, and we did it with the repaint of the GSS unit for CitizenCon last year, was to basically paint it with 4 coats of silver first, and then do its top coat color, and then very, very carefully sand back the top coat in the right places so it actually looks like a sort of genuine paint wear effect. So I'd love to do that with the Dragonfly. I'd love to repaint it, entirely repaint it, so that we could do a battered, worn look on it, because that was the only thing I didn't like about it, was it just looked too non-drakey in that it was really fresh paint on it. I'd also like to do a different skin on it as well. um I'd like the pirate skin.
Pirate skin, I was gonna ask, was hoping
Yeah.
for Star Kitten, to be honest.
I don't think that CIG likes Dark Kitten anymore.
Oh, really?
It's,
Man, because
well,
the community sure loves it.
yeah, but it sort of disappeared, didn't it? I don't know who was behind Star Kitten back in the day, but there was Star Kitten guns and all sorts of stuff, and we just haven't really seen it. I expected it to be all over Area 18, because it would fit in really well with that sort of um, cyberpunky type neon and all that kind of stuff. I expected to see Star Kitten everywhere, but no, I've not
Did
seen
kind of
it.
disappear. I didn't realize that. Is there a
Yeah.
conspiracy theory about that?
If they're not, there should be.
Hmm.
Please start a conspiracy theory, internet. But yeah, no, I really like it as a brand. I think it's really fun. It's I don't know whether they think it's too close to Hello Kitty that they'll get some sort of legal issue
Mm.
with it, but
Yeah, that's
I don't. I
true.
think it's far enough away from it. There's no doubt about that. None of the colors are actually the same. Um, we've had a few people ask us that have bought the Dragonfly kit model whether we do the decal for the Star Kitten. So I think there are some people who want to paint it in a Star Kitten getup. Miserable G, one of our painters and fellow streamer, did a Star Kitten Dragonfly on the Kraken for CitizenCon, and he hand painted the Star Kitten logo on it. And to be honest, it's the only real way to do it. We unfortunately can't do the decal for it because it's so big, it wraps around the whole engine that it would become such a big water slide decal that you just have to wrap it around all the detail, and it really wouldn't work. So you kind of have to stencil paint it on. So I am really looking forward to seeing the first Star Kitten Dragonfly kit model put together. So that might be quite good. And I kind of hoped we'd be able to put it on any ship and have the sort of Star Kitten on the side of a freelancer or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see what this whole new paint customizing system comes out with when we get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting.
What color will your 890 be then? If you got to pick, any colors on it.
I mean, would I be lame if I said white?
No
Here,
accent color or anything.
here's my
Go
thing.
faster stripe down the down the middle of it.
My thing about white, as far as spaceships go, is like it's most ideal for avoiding radiation exposure. I
Hmm.
would take either white or stainless.
Yeah, a sort of chromed 890 would be quite interesting.
Mirror. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. Hey, I'll do that.
Mirror chrome and white. I like
It's
it.
all for radiation avoidance, so.
Absolutely. And it shouldn't look too misc either. I mean, I like the Origin ships. A lot of people ask you when we're going to do a kit model of an Origin ship, and we have issues at the moment with Origin ships, and not just Origin ships, but a few other ships as well. In that the amount of glass on them is an issue for us. 3D printers, unfortunately, can't do good optically clear prints yet. You can polish them to look optically clear, but we don't have the time and resource in our production to hand polish all the clear parts. So we're working on at the moment doing our own castings and stuff, because everyone just says, "Oh, just cast them." Just like I've done castings before. We've had a friend of ours has come in and done castings for us. It's a bit of a dark art. It's a couple of £1,000s to get a good setup to actually do proper casting. Because if you want to do optically clear things, you need to degas it, you need to pressurize it, you need to do it properly to make sure there's no bubbles in it. And that's the blocker at the moment for us doing Origin ships, because if we did Origin ships if we did an 890, we're going to have the beautiful big glass areas on the top so that you can see inside and all that kind of stuff. So if it doesn't have that, it's just going to look rubbish.
I
Well,
don't
not
know.
rubbish, but just not good enough.
I think
Um,
anything would be okay at this point. I'm
no,
serious.
no, 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 no,
Start
no, no.
off iteratively and just make a quick, because like I'm really trying to get some Starfares printed because I got the whole
Mm,
model and everything, and I did some for Austin 2018,
mm,
and I got the permission to sell them from CIG. So I'm like, well,
mm.
let's do this. And
The
It's so
Starfarer is a good one.
expensive.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's like we people people asked us like, oh well, well, people say all the time that our models are too expensive. They're too expensive, and I know they are expensive, and it's just it is what they cost. And
That's what they cost, yeah.
we put the arrow into Shapeways, on a couple of other. I think it was Shapeways that we got that we did put all the bits. So I kind of there weren't the actual files because the Shapeways wouldn't let us upload files that size. But they were all the same volumes and sort of same rough shapes of sort of like some of the initial file pieces for the arrow. And we uploaded all the parts. And to print one arrow in the same material, the same quality at Shapeways was $1,350. It's just like we're in the wrong game.
Mhm.
We should be charging way more.
Mhm.
But yeah, 3D printing is expensive, and it's I think that's the other thing that people miss. That like SLA 3D printing is a really costly manufacturing method, um, and you've got to have a really good file to stick in there at the beginning as
That's
well.
true. Yep.
That's what takes us the most time. And most of the money on the kits is paying for the 6 weeks R&D to get a model from the game and make it into a printable kit. It is a huge amount of work. We effectively redraw the whole thing by the time we're finished. Um, and there's no we. I mean, there's me, there's Engineer, there's Westbrook Drew. We haven't found a cheating way around this. There are obviously you can just throw a CIG model into Mesh Mixer and sort of wrap it with its logarithm, and it does what we nickname potatoing. So it sort of inflates the model because it basically what it's doing is trying to wrap a mesh skin around it until there's no holes left, and that's how it produces a solid model. But you lose all the fidelity in it. You lose all the sort of nuances of the shape, and it also doesn't put any of the detailing on it, like panel lines and nuts and bolts and all that kind of stuff. So there isn't, unfortunately, a cheaty way of getting these models to be printable. We have the issue that we can't really iterate. We can't really throw out a it'll do model, um, mainly because that's not what we're aiming for, but also because every single one of our models has to get past John Crew. And it's like we like JC, we got on very well with JC, but all of our models physically land on his desk for him to critique. And because he's head of ships, and he's also a big Warhammer fan and a big model fan, it's a really awesome seal of approval to get when we get our seals of approval from him. But he is very critical of our models. He will point out things that there's a few bits on the Dragonfly that he made suggestions, and we followed those suggestions because I've got a lot of respect for his opinion on our models because of he's the guy in charge of designing them ultimately, and he knows models. So he's a fantastic person to have feedback from. But they are very critical of them. We have to get them absolutely spot on to get them under their nose, which I like because um, it means that we've done a good job. And people can criticize our models all they like. If JC's happy with it, I'm happy with it. So,
I would
so
be.
that's our level.
I'm just trying to imagine what a day must be like where, he's sitting at his desk or something and someone drops a 3D model on his desk being like, okay, you got 45 minutes, whatever, go through it. Or like, I wonder if there's a form that he's given with a cover sheet on it, like, and he has to check through all the boxes, something like
No,
that.
no, because the way it works is we physically rock up at his desk and go hi
Is
and
that how
just
you do
pass him
it?
a model. Yeah,
Okay.
because one of the biggest issues with the kit models is that they're quite hard to post once they're built. One of the big reasons, there's about 3 or 4 really big reasons why we do kit models, and one of them is because the Star Citizen models are so detailed and the guns and things are so fine and tiny. Once you've actually taken them off the supports and actually built the model, it's relatively fragile. It is a display model. All the little guns and stuff are quite fragile. And I don't know what the postal service is like in your neck of the woods.
Uh,
We
what's that
assume
talk about?
football practice is is what's done with most parcels in the UK. They arrive battered and bruised. And it only takes one gun, coming off or something like that, and then it isn't perfect. So we've discovered it's a lot less worry and effort just to drive the 2 hours down the road and just walk into the office and go, there you go, there's the model. And there's usually we'll set up a couple of meetings as well, because there'll be people we need to talk to for other projects and stuff. So we tend to, or just go to lunch with Cameron or something like that. So we have enough friends down there to make it worth going around just to see them, to be honest. But it does mean that we can physically hand models over to people, which is always good, because then it's not going to get broken, and you tend to get a decision a lot faster if you've harangued people in person.
Yeah, that's true.
And one of the big things that we enjoy about doing the Star Citizen stuff with the company is we like the devs. We love the devs. And it always puts a smile on my face to go into CIG, because the first thing you see is the Raven. Because that eventually did get hung. We hung that in the reception area. So the first thing you do is walk under the big 1-8 Raven. And yeah, that always puts a smile on always puts a smile on my face, which is very sad since we built it. But it's nice to see it. It's nice to see it hasn't fallen down, and that it's that it's still fine. There's one gun broken on it now. Someone dusted it really vigorously
Oh
or
no.
something, apparently. So next time I go down there, I'll take a new gun down, and fit it. But
I'm a little bit
it's a
disappointed you didn't build like an anti-gravity drive in it.
it would take a hell of a one to get it afloat. I mean, it's like the whole thing. Maybe if we'd done it out of polystyrene or something, we could have done something clever. But
Ah,
that
I
thing's pretty
see.
much, yeah, it's pretty much solid wood, so it weighs just over quarter of a ton. So it's a bit of a beast. In the days where the only material I had at my sort of disposal was wood, um, and this is the thing. It is interesting because we get people asking now. One of them's in chat. It's like, oh, could you build another Raven? It's like we could, but I would build it so differently now. I would start all over again. That was the first ship that I had to fix, and I fixed it so badly compared to how we do it now, because we're just thrown in at the deep end to get it to work. I would build it so differently now, and so much more. And the other thing is, same issue we had with the Kraken. The file we got for the Raven and the Kraken were very early on concept models of it. It wasn't finished. Lots changed, especially on the Kraken, between us getting the model and even it being the sort of launch video of it. So there's quite a lot of subtle differences between the two, between the model and what's in game, because they were still 3 months out from finishing it for the event when we got the model in both cases. So it's the idea. This is the other big reason why we never do any ships for merchandise that aren't in game, and that we are 99% sure, after talking to JC, that they aren't going to get a massive visual rework, in the future, because we don't want to put out ships that are inaccurate or are going to change, because then we'll have to revisit them and redo them. And yeah, people want fidelity. I love the Star Citizen community, and they want the best. They want them to be perfect, and I don't want to have to redo them later on. By the time I've finished with a ship, I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
After I've stared at it for 6 weeks, I get very bored of a ship after that. So if I am looking forward to going back and doing the Raven and the Kraken as models. Really looking forward to doing them, because I feel like I've got unfinished business with them. Um, I really enjoyed doing the Dragonfly model because we'd done the Dragonfly, and that was, yeah, that was actually really nice. And we put a lot more detail on the little 1-40 model than we did on the 1-1 model, so that was nice as well. Um, so I say, if you ever get to build something again, I think that's a definite characteristic of makers as well, is that they're never really happy with anything they do, because all they see when they look at it is what they do differently now. Um, so yeah, I don't look whenever I see photos of stuff we've done. I just sort of glance at it, go, "Oh, that was cool," and then stop looking, because I'll just see the things I don't like about it, um, and go, "Oh, I wish I'd done that. Oh, I wish I'd done that." But I think that's a good thing. It means that we're always improving. So
That's right. When you say Kraken, What do you mean Kraken? Like, you're gonna build a Kraken, or one of your kits? Or you're gonna make
Yeah,
a?
no, it's really high. It's one of the most requested ships for doing a kit model of is the Kraken. Again, we won't do it until it's in game because it'll change so much
It's
from
true.
the concept. Um, it'll be in 1 to 500, so it'll be a big model. It'll be over 2 feet long as a model. So that'll be really nice. And it's gonna be a lot of parts. And we're probably going to need a bigger printer as well. I think realistically, that's also going to have to wait until the larger version of the printer that we use is available. It was supposed to be available now-ish, but everything's being put on hold at the moment. So there's been no news about bigger printers. But yeah, it will be a struggle to do it on ours at the moment, just because you'd be so limited by a lot of the landing pads wouldn't even fit in one piece in our printers, I don't think. Um, maybe the small ones would, but the big ones certainly wouldn't. And when you try and do seams on flat parts for people to do at home, it really would require filling and sanding, and that's not something we want to sort of force everyone to do. So I think, yeah, I think that model will have to wait until we have a printer big enough. But yeah, it's one of the most requested models that we do. That and the Mercury Star Runner. So that'll definitely be high on the list as well. I hope to do the Star Runner as soon as it comes out because it's a nice size model as well. It's about the same size as the Freelancer Max, so it's a nice sort of 8-inch model. So that'll be good.
So I'm pretty stoked that you just made this huge announcement of the Kraken on this show, that it's going to be 2 feet, and I have it written down here. So if the size changes before now and the release of the Kraken, that I'll know who to hunt down.
Absolutely. Well, the size thing is one of the hardest decisions we made when we started doing the merchandise, because in an ideal world you would do them all to the same scale. Because I am very much of that opinion that it's great to be able to sit the ships next to each other and see the size difference between them. Star Citizen is just not possible to do that in because the range of size is phenomenal. And so we had to make decisions, and there's sort of two major ways that people go down this. They either go down the sort of I can't remember which collector series of the Star Trek ships, and they were all about the same size ships. So they all sort of look nice, sat on a shelf, but
Yeah.
an Enterprise is the same size as a shuttlecraft. It's just like, nah, I don't like it. I want to see the size difference. I want to see that that ship is way bigger than that ship, especially with stuff like the Enterprises, because you could, if I had all the Enterprises, I want to see how much bigger they've got, rather than just keep shrinking the scale. Um, so we knew we didn't want to go down that line. Erin didn't want to go down that line either. So we sort of went, right, okay, so we're going to have to pick some scales. And originally we had 5 scales: 1 to 40, 1 to 100, 1 to 200, 1 to 400, 1 to 600. And that's what we felt would be the ones that we wanted to do. When we got into it a little bit in a little bit more detail, it turned out there weren't really many 1 to 400 ships. Um, so we decided to ditch 400 and 600 and just do 1 to 500. So we've ended up with just 4 scales. And we've sort of made now a commitment because we've sort of got the first 1 to 500 ship is now in the process of being developed. We've started that pipeline. The design work has started. So we're sort of locked in with that scale now. And we've sort of gone, right, okay, these are the only scales we're ever going to do for our kit models: 1 to 40, 1 to 100, 1 to 200, 1 to 500. So any ship we do will fit into one or more of those, because we would like to do two. There are certain ones like the Freelancer Max, for example, is doable in 1 to 500 as a teeny tiny diorama model to go alongside. Well, I say teeny tiny, over 3 inches, but as a diorama piece for the 1 to 500 models, so you can land it on a Kraken. Yeah, it would fit on a Kraken because it's the same size as a Cutlass. Um, but also to maybe one day do a 1 to 100, so it's a foot and a half, something like that, big, and you to have all the interiors done. We've done the cargo bay and the cockpit, on the 1 to 200, so you can actually slide the back out and see the inside of the cockpit and put cargo in it and stuff. But it'd be nice to do the whole of the interior in the freelancers at some point. Um, so yes, the Kraken is a big ship, so the Kraken will be in 1 to 500, and it's that whole thing of it'll be 1 to 500 no matter how big those ships get. So if we ever do a Javelin, it'll be in 1 to 500 and be 4 feet long,
Oh my
something like that.
god.
It'll be massive if we ever do it. Because to be honest, the only way we could do them otherwise is we have another scale, and then it's actually a really personal thing as well. In that my ship in game is the hull E. That's my ship, and I don't want to make a
Interesting.
I don't want a hull E model that's teeny tiny. And
Yep.
it's because I'm a huge MISC fan and a big Hull series fan. The danger with doing loads and loads of scales is that all the hull ships look the same. Because if you keep having to scale the model down every time you jump up to the next hull size, all the hull ships will look the same as models. And I want to have all the hull ships in 1 to 500 so that I can have A, B, C, D, and E next to each other, so you can see how big the E is. And the E ends up being over 3 feet long as well, I think, because it's not far off a javelin in size. Um, so yeah, so I want those massive ships because my ship is a massive ship. So it's a purely selfish thing, really. Um, but yeah, no, I think if we do too many scales, it becomes silly, and it's one of the criticisms we've had up to this point is that we don't like the fact people don't like the fact every ship we do is a different scale, and I get why it looks like that because we've tried to do sort of one of each scale to get us started, but we're now starting to fill in this year more ships, and then it'll become very clear that no, there is just these scales, and you can collect all of them, be preferable, from our point of view. But also, if you're a fan of fighters, all the fighters will be in 1 to 100, and you can collect all the fighters, and they will all be relevant scale. Or perhaps you're a hauler, or perhaps you're a big ship person. So if you are a very specific type of pilot or ship collector, you'll be able to collect those ships, and they will all be in the right scale. And as I say, we will also go in and do little diorama ones. So like when we do the Carrack, because I think that's a when rather than if, because that's a popular ship as well. We'll make sure there's a tiny little Pisces and a tiny little Ursa Rover that go into it, so that you've got that again for reference. So yeah, that'll definitely get done. I said the Carrack, the Carrack, the Kraken, and the Star Runner come back as the most popular ships to do, in any surveys we do. Um, but yeah, and that is the thing. If people out there have a favorite ship, um, and from our point of view, usefully a ship that they would be willing to pay our price bracket for a kit model of that ship, we want to know about it, because the only way that we pick the next ship to do is by community feedback of what people want. There are so many ships in Star Citizen. We will have to produce 20 ships a year
Yep.
to have any chance of catching them up.
I think more than
Uh,
that.
I do think that CIG are going to start doing less ships um, a year, because I think that I, they've said a few times that they're trying to do less concept ships because they want to actually do the concept, like build the concept ships that they've already announced. So I think we'll probably get more actual ships from them a year into the game, but probably less new ones. So we perhaps will only get maybe 3 or 4 new ships a year, if that, because they'll be trying to actually get the Cutlass Blue in, get all the ones they've already announced actually built and in game. And I think their focus is more on that than announcing brand new ships. The brand new ships that they seem to be announcing are straight to flyable, which is great. So perhaps if we could do kind of 10, 15 models a year, maybe in 7 years' time we'll have caught up and we'll have done all of them. And hopefully, as if I mean, our business doesn't work it's profitably long term if Star Citizen doesn't grow as a fan base. We're committing this time and effort into it now because we feel that when the community grows by 5 times or something like that over the next 2 or 3 years, as Squadron gets released, and the fan base of Star Citizen becomes more mainstream, then our products will obviously have a much bigger audience to sell to. Um, that One day I'd love to do all the ships. I'd love to be able to say we did every single ship in Star Citizen. Yeah. A Bengal carrier in 1 to 500. Ooh, that's gonna be big. Um, and yeah, everyone says, "Oh, do a retribution." Just like
How big would that be? 1 to 500.
big, really big. I mean, a Bengal would be 8 feet long. Um, which isn't. I know it sounds a lot, but we've done bigger. Um, it wouldn't be a kit model, but it doesn't necessarily mean we couldn't build one for an event or something like that. And the retribution's what, 3 times the length of that. So
Wow.
it would be an event thing. We could build one
Yeah.
for an event. Would look quite stunning.
That'll most likely
Um,
happen someday, actually. This seems very practical and very much Chris Roberts.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I say. I mean, the Kraken was half a ton and was 5 meters long. So I mean, it's not like we don't build that sort of size ship. I think it is very much out of the realms of something for people to buy to have in their own house,
Yep.
unless they have the that sort of money. And that's the thing. We this is the other thing we get quite a lot is people asking for a one-off, for a one-off kit model or one-off model of a ship, and fine, we send them a price for it, and they usually fall off their chair, because at the end of the day, if I was to make an individual kit model for somebody, it's a minimum of 6,000-7,000 pounds.
How much of
um
that is spent in just the modeler?
all of it, pretty much. I
Not
mean, the
it's
actual.
not the material?
No, no. I mean, the to do a one-off model will say it takes 5 times as much material as a normal kit, because you're having to do all. I probably do 5 test prints of every part at least, or no, roughly about five to 8 test prints of every part to get them perfect. Um, but the material cost, it's only for a kit model is in the region of say 20 to 30 pounds. So it's a relative. So you'd only be talking 100 or so pounds, something like that, for the actual materials. The issue is that it's design time. It's 4 to 6 weeks full time of a designer to do that, to make it that good. So if you're doing a one-off model, the entirety of that is going on your bill. And that's what people sort of forget, is the amount of actual. It's not about how much it takes material and print time, it's getting the file to print in the first place. And there's a lot of people on Reddit that go, oh well, you just download it from CIG and press print. It's like, good luck with that. Because these models are beautifully designed to work in a computer game, and unfortunately that makes them horrifically designed to make models out of them. So there is a huge amount of work that has to go in. So that's why we did the kit models, and I mean, they're limited to 500 because reasons. For a small company to continue to make the same products indefinitely is quite difficult, because you effectively have to keep the tooling and all this sort of stuff indefinitely. We try to find ways of making to add value and worth to the products without adding a lot more cost. So we thought, well, making them limited edition, having little signed certificates in them, and making them a collector's item makes them more valuable without actually adding any more cost in, really, other than the certificate. Um, and 500, if we sell 500 of every model, they are well profitable. So that works. But we have to spread out the design cost over, say, the first 200. So we'll break even when we sell 200, and then after that, it's profit.
I'm just
Um,
looking at the Grey Cat model right now. Can you see the Twitch stream?
uh, yes, if I move the Zoom call.
I'm
Yes, there
just
we go.
I'm just wondering if you could describe it a little bit more.
If you can, what
Is that right? Am I looking at
website
the
are you
right
on?
image?
If you flip onto our website, because I think that might be, is that not? Yeah, I think that's an old image. If you flip onto our website, there we go, and go on to the dragonflies pictures. I think they're some of
Oh, you want the
the best.
dragonfly?
Yeah, I think the dragonfly's got um one of my favorite photos we've done are the dragonfly ones, because there's some that sort of have it painted in front of all the kit pieces and stuff. Um, so yeah, so there's a lot in these kits. You can see the certificate in some of these photos, and it comes with sandpaper. It comes with decals. I say we try to throw in the stuff that is not a lot of cost. Um, and I say it's all to try and offset the design cost of these things, because every single one of those parts has to be drawn out and made printable and make it fit together really nicely so it actually produces a nice model at the end of the day. So the design cost is by far and away our biggest cost. The other thing that we get a lot is, why do you just have them injection molded?
I used to
Um,
work at an injection molding plant, by the way. I wanted to mention
oh,
that.
did you? How interesting. Making what?
Um, car parts.
Hmm.
There was Ford Freestar and the Hummer H3.
Oh, okay.
We did those in Windsor,
Interesting.
Ontario, which is just a suburb of Detroit. That was what I did when I was 18 years old. And it
Nice.
got
Well,
a
you might be able to testament to this that they are not cheap.
well, not the machines, definitely not. But once you get them pumping, then I think they're
Oh,
pretty affordable.
absolutely. And it's that whole thing of a injection molding mold for models. So we have a friend that used to work for Games Workshop, Citadel, which are based in the UK, and their molds they do a resin injection, but it's a very similar mold. So they are aluminium dyed molds, and they cost in the region for one of their sort of big blister packs for say a tank or something, cost between 100 and 250,000 pounds to
I've
have made.
I've always wondered that because I've ruined molds
Yeah,
before. So
yeah, a
I've
lot.
always wondered how much that costs. I said I
So for
worked there. I never said I was a good worker.
yeah, no. But yeah, I mean, for detailed for detailed molds, dies for these things, it is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, but they pump out. I mean, because we asked, because this is, I was trying to get in my head, kind of with this guy, kind of, well, how many do they produce? How many kits does Citadel Miniatures put out? So if they're launching a new model, say a Space Marine pack or something, there will be 1 million units in every continent that they sell in before they release. And you think, fuck yeah, okay, that brings the cost down quite a bit. If you spent £250,000 getting your tooling set up and training people to use it, but if you're going to run off 4 million just before you've even got going, then yeah, it's a low cost. And as you say, once you've got the mold, those machines just fly them out. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
they're so quick. um but that's the issue. The tooling cost is immense, and it
Mm.
takes them 12 months to get tooling,
Does it
because a
really take
lot of it's hand done.
12
Yeah,
months to do that?
yeah. Because a lot of, when, I don't know if this is a specific thing to the resin casting they do. Resin gives off a lot of heat when it's curing, and presumably it's a really weird resin that cures so fast that they can put it in an injection molder. But there's lots of cooling pipes inside the die, and they
Yeah.
have to be hand tooled in.
Yeah.
To get these they're all hand polished as well on the
Mhm.
insides to get the faces beautiful. So yeah, it's a 12-month process from starting the design work to having a die for that sort of thing. So it's a lot of work, because a lot of people say, oh well, CIG did the Connie model. It's like, yeah, they did. I don't think it was profitable. Otherwise, they'd have carried on doing them. And it's like, um, yeah, I because, well, how many do they do? 2,500 of
I
them?
have no idea, but I always wanted one. Do you have one?
Yeah, I don't. They were sold out well before I got into Star Citizen, and I don't think there's any kicking around. I see one in the office. There's a couple in the office, but they tend to be on Aaron's desk and things like that, and I think he'd missed them. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I can't see that that broke even, because the dies that would have had to be made to do die cast are not cheap. They didn't sell many of them, and as I say, I suspect that if it was a profitable venture for them, they would have carried on doing it. Um, it's just it's one of those things. It's mass production starts at about 50 to 100,000 units of something. Under that, it's not mass production; it's just production. And Star Citizen isn't that big yet. It's you're a profitable venture. Not yet. So, someone put in chat is like, no, we're not profitable. We've not hit that break even point yet, in the model, certainly.
It would be cool if you
Um,
could figure this out, though. I mean, I don't know.
oh,
It's a pretty
absolutely,
cool
yeah.
business, in my opinion.
It works for us, um, as a company, because so JRDF isn't that old. It's only a couple of years old. Um, 2017 is technically when I left my previous employer, to set up my own company, and then Cal's joined a year after that, quit her job and joined, um, sort of full time. Most businesses won't turn a profit in their first couple of years, so we're not worried that we haven't reached that point yet. Um, the issue we have is that we were sort of on a relatively steady trajectory towards profitability, doing both events and starting to do these kit model merchandise. This year's been a little bit challenging because events don't exist anymore.
Mm.
So all the events we had lined up for this year evaporated. Um, and realistically, when are events ever going to come back?
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
that's the thing, because they are going to be the last thing that we're allowed to do again.
Yeah.
Is the problem. So we may not see events till the middle of next year, or maybe beyond. Who knows? You know, it's a really difficult. If we have to have any kind of social distancing, events won't happen. You know, you can't do them. You look at Gamescom, there are 60,000 people at that event. People queue for hours like it's a zombie apocalypse to get into that place. You know, that social distancing of an inch wouldn't be possible at Gamescom. So those sort of events are never going to happen again until there are no restrictions left, and that's no travel restrictions, no personal space restrictions, nothing. You know, it just won't happen. So we have to go forward as a business, assuming no events again. We may never go back to doing events. We don't. We genuinely don't know. So we're having to sort of assume that for the foreseeable, we are just going to be doing the merchandise side. And whether we can survive doing that just within the Star Citizen field is doubtful. So um, we will be looking to sort of spread our wings and find other companies to work with as well, not instead of, as well, because there's obviously a lot of larger genres out there. Star Citizen is amazing. It's it's the only game I play, really. Um, and the community is amazing, absolutely amazing. But unfortunately, because of how amazing the community is, within the Star Citizen bubble, Star Citizen feels a lot bigger than it is. Star Citizen does not have a big fan base. It feels massive when you're inside it. It feels, just because it's so active and everything, but pretty much every other game out there pales it into
That's true.
insignificance for fan base.
Yep.
You know, for people playing and paying money to play that game, Star Citizen is a teeny, teeny, tiny enterprise. Um, and
I'm
that will
actually
change.
thankful for that, by the way, because if there was more people in Star Citizen, there'd just be so much more noise than there currently is.
Yes, that is true. I think it works for the point in its development. It works being this big, because the feedback to them is of a sensible size. They can actually take our feedback, and it works. This is a good size for the moment. Once it releases, once Squadron releases, hopefully it will take off and be a much bigger thing. Otherwise, it won't be profitable as a business. They have to. Well, I say that we keep throwing money at them, but
That's never gonna stop. I don't think so.
It might stop one day. One, it's just like, be like, "Oh, haven't you launched Squadron yet?" It's like, why do they need to? I mean, this is this is what I don't understand. Oh, surely they'll release Squadron. It's like, why? It's like they're not. They don't need to launch Squadron until we stop giving them money. And it's every year we give them more and more money. So why not just keep doing Squadron until it's only going to get better and better and better and better. And then when we stop giving them money, they'll go, okay, you can have Squadron. And then that's basically how it works, isn't it? Why fix what ain't broken? Um, and yeah, it's the forever project, and and I do think there will be. I said this to Aaron, and he nearly fell off his chair. He said, I sort of, when you sort of say something and you pause for too long in the middle of a sentence, you're just like, I don't think Star Citizen will ever really be released. And it was like, well, no, because you're never going to stop
No.
developing it. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, is like that point where it goes from not released to released. Now it's, I don't, what's the difference going to be? Do you know what I mean? Because they're still going to be doing patches to make it better and better and better. What's that cutoff point where you say, well, now it's technically released? And it's probably a change in the funding model potentially. It's it hits a goal of having particular number of systems in, a number of mechanics in, but it's not going to have all the mechanics in because they'll want to carry on putting those in. So it's like it's going to be a very fuzzy line of we're technically released, and all the people that are involved in the project and like us playing it will probably see very little difference than between two major patches that we have now. It's always going to keep getting better and better and better and better. Um, and just because it's now technically released, I don't think we'll see much difference. I think the way that we're currently getting patches and it's currently getting, I mean, the only difference maybe is that any patches after that have to be perfectly polished and not crashy. That might be the only difference. Um, but I still think there'll be a PTU that we can go and enjoy the crashy 30k nature of Star Citizen in if we miss it. So I suppose that might be the only thing that they won't be able to. Yeah, they won't be able to release broken patches after release. That might be the biggest thing. So let's go. Won't Squadron free up over half the staff? No, not really.
We'll see.
The thing is, the Squadron team itself isn't that big, because most of the stuff that goes into making Squadron is also the stuff that goes into making the PU. So, like Gas Cloud Tech and props team. It's not a different props team. The props team make props for Squadron and Star Citizen because they all go in the same library eventually. The ship team are the same team because yes, okay, they might have to prioritize the Squadron ship, but effectively it's still a Star Citizen ship, so their role won't change. The props team role won't change. Sound won't change. Yes, they're doing Squadron sounds, but it's still PU sounds. So there's nothing there's other than the narrative team and maybe a couple of other smaller bits to do with like the cinematics, specific cinematic type stuff. There's not really a lot of Squadron things that aren't also PU things, and everything does filter through relatively quickly. So I don't know. What do you reckon? You reckon there'll be and there's more episodes of Squadron, so I'll just carry on
That's what I
making
was
the next
thinking.
episode.
But you know
Yeah.
what? Once they let the cat out of the bag, then they'll have all these content. It won't always be about super secrecy that they have now. So they'll just be like Squadron 42 with first episode or whatever comes out. Then there'll be all this content. We'll see Odin
Hmm.
system, we'll see Nyx and all that. We'll see jump points. And then like, okay, well, all of a sudden they can continue feeding us content. Maybe Squadron 42 episode 2, and then maybe we'll get a couple more systems with PU. So I think that the two content releases will be kind of synchronous. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
No, I
I
think
don't think
so.
I think I agree with you basically that not much would really change.
I don't think much will change, and I think once they've completely finished with Squadron in what 6 years' time, because it's what I think.
Well,
Did they
what
say
did
2
Aaron
years
Roberts
between
say?
episodes? I
What
think
did
2 years between episodes. I think can't remember now.
when you met with Aaron Roberts, what did he say after you said that?
Oh, I think he sort of said yes. No, I mean he agreed from the point of view of they will still keep putting patches out, and that there isn't really a it's not a case of it's released and then they stop working on the PU. So yes, no, he after he sort of regained himself, he did agree. As you said, the feedback from him was the funding model will change. They don't know what it'll change to, but that will change. So I suppose that might be the defining point in that it's things like they might drop concept ship sales, they might drop. They're not. I think they've said they're not going to a subscription service, but whatever they work out is the way to fund the game going forward. That will probably fundamentally change from what we have at the moment. Because I think if we kept what we have at the moment, it is a bit of play to win, pay to win. Um, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, they've said about just selling money, in-game money, for people. Whether that's enough to fund the game. The thing is, I guess until they get to that point, they won't know how much money they need to raise a year
That's
to
true.
keep the project going, because it's if they are going to continue with a similar size staff. I mean, what they've got 600 now, maybe more.
Something like that. Yeah.
Um, are they going to continue to just do Star Citizen, or are they going to expand even more and do more games? Um, I, I, I'd love to see them. I'd love to see Cloud Imperium do other games. Um, I don't know what, but what it's that's the whole thing. Whatever they do it better than anyone else. I think they have just the most amazingly intelligent people there. Maybe another single player game would be quite good. Um, maybe a prequel to Star Citizen would
That'd
be
be
quite
cool.
interesting.
They got enough
Sort of
content.
well, exactly, like kind of an expanse era sort of game where it's a bit more just within our own solar system, um, sort of thing, maybe.
A Kerbal version of Star Citizen. I would be so happy to play that. You have no idea.
Yeah,
That would be my
that,
favorite game of all time.
that would be awesome. And then I suppose they could do. I mean, the game I would really like CIG to put out, although it is very much within the current Star Citizen timeline, is when they finish with Squadron to do a Star Trek single player
Mm.
theme thing. So you're on a big capital exploration ship going out into new systems, finding a new alien race and all that kind of stuff, and boldly going as an exploration theme single player. Because I'm not a combat pilot.
Me neither.
I'm looking forward to Squadron. I'm probably not going to play it. I'm probably going to watch other people play it and really enjoy it from that kind of cinema. I'm basically watching a film of Star Citizen.
Yeah, but what
Um,
if you get an F8 out of it?
I wouldn't use it. I'm
It's
so
true.
bad at the first thing I do as a general rule when I claim a ship and get in a game is take all the guns off it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I do the
Yeah.
same thing.
I don't want guns. I might accidentally shoot somebody, and I
I
don't
just
even
think that
have my trigger actually mapped
me neither.
on my
Yeah,
joystick.
me neither. Yo, I took the guns off of my ship and it looks so much better. It's a
Hmm.
315 with the blue paint job on it,
Yep.
and without the guns on it, yeah, it looks like a Ferrari. I love it.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, what if you get attacked? It's like, I'll run away.
Exactly.
I'll just get destroyed if I
Nobody's that
stick
coordinated in
around.
this game, honestly.
Yeah, and it's just I think the thing is, it's like the way people talk about the Carrack is like, oh, the Carrack's just the Serenity. It's like, no, it's not. It's got guns on it. The Serenity didn't have any guns. It's an unarmed ship until they literally strapped one to the roof of it. I really want there to be an advantage of being an unarmed ship in Star Citizen. I want there to be places you can't go if you have an armed ship, or perhaps pirates. Yeah, well, pirates would still go after you if you were armed, but yeah, there to be some things like if you're just a trader, I'm just a hauler. I there's no point me having guns on a hull E. I mean,
Well,
I suppose
turrets.
there's yeah, I suppose there's a protection thing, but really, it's just like, is it really going to help? I do have a hammerhead. I won't take the guns off that. That's
Pointless.
that, yeah, that would be pointless. But I don't think I'll use my hammerhead a huge amount in game, if I'm perfectly honest. I have it for my, it is my escort ship for my hull E, but I'll probably put other people in it to fly it. Um, to be honest, but yeah, it's yeah. I'm not a combat. I hate combat. I'm just so bad at it, and I'm even worse at FPS combat as well. It's like I really love the look of Theaters of War, but I know I'm not going to play it. Just like I don't play Star Marine. I enjoy watching other people play it, but it's just not something I enjoy. I enjoy playing. Um, so yeah, I think I'm going to watch Squadron. I'll probably try and play it because I'm sure it'll be beautiful. Um, and yeah,
Who
I want to
knows?
see it
Maybe
in
you can beat
4K.
it. Maybe you could beat it as a cargo pilot.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I refuse to fight. I wonder if there's, yeah, I wonder if there's a pacifist route through it. I doubt it.
I don't know, man. 10 years of development.
Absolutely. I mean, perhaps I should play it to become a better combat pilot. Perhaps
That's how I look at it. I mean, it can't
yeah.
hurt.
No, that's true. And I'm so excited for it though, just as a as a film. I really hope that someone does a machinima of it. I'm sure someone will, but will actually play it through in 4K, record it all, and then edit it so that it looks beautifully and smooth. And you could just release it as a film. I think I really hope someone does it, so that we could just watch Squadron as a TV show. Effectively, I'd love to do that.
I mean, just
Um,
considering the way Twitch is going, like I 100% believe that'll be the case, especially if they do that whole thing with like the Mako and having like a
mm.
robotic camera or something like that.
Oh my god, yeah. For PU, the in-game events
Yeah.
are going to be spectacular. I mean, you look at like people like Corsairs do the Daymar Rally. At the moment, given the current tech in game and the instability and the server issues and all that kind of stuff, and he's already doing amazing events that are very, very watchable. I mean, live watchable events. I think is absolutely staggering. Yes, things like the Mako will really help. I think the other thing within game events is that and I guess the Mako might be able to do this, is the draw call distance isn't long enough. Um, for you can't hover above a planet and see the dragonflies and stuff far enough out
Yeah, we need that.
for it to do it. And I don't know whether they could actually do it through like the Mako's camera has a longer draw call on it.
Ah, that's a good idea.
Because that because it's going through the camera. I mean, it's obviously it's not a it's a game issue in that they're trying to, it's a resource issue, but potentially through the Maker's camera, they, because it's in a tunnel, they might be able to do a longer draw call. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Possible. It is possible.
That makes
Because
sense though.
that would it would be the advantage of using it that you could actually zoom in and things and see more through it and have different lenses on it to give you different sort of aspects.
I'm surprised we're not close to that now because if you leave your lights on, in some cases you can see your ship from orbit.
Yes. Yes, you can. At night it's easier, but
Yeah.
it's a lot harder for the pilots because it's just dust, rock, boom, and that's it. That's the end of your race. I think things like refueling obviously is going to be a huge mechanic for doing that sort of space racing.
I hope so, man.
Um,
I'm all
well,
in.
you're all about the refueling.
Yep.
I mean, what's your hope for if you could um, if you could have anything you wanted from the refueling mechanic, what would you have?
It's so weird my perspective on this. I think about this a lot. Um, I'm a cook and I feel like I want to fuel people, right? It's just
Yeah,
what I identify with closely, like as a human. So whatever activity requires me to execute that task is what I will do.
fair enough.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does, and it's. I think the refueling mechanic is an odd one in that quite a few things need to change before it is something that's useful. Um, and it's like people need to run out of fuel more than they currently do for a start. You're going to need to be able to have routes, I suppose, with bigger ships, maybe, where you can't travel from one place to another without stopping halfway, and there isn't a station there. So you're going to have to call in a refueler to do it, maybe. Um, but yeah, no, the refueling mechanic's going to be good. I'm hoping the fact it's taking them so long to do it means that it's going to be quite an in-depth mechanic. I mean, they've done an awful lot of work on mining. I think mining's probably done for the time being. I don't think they're going to put anything else into mining.
I think
So
everything
whatever,
is going to come from mining.
do you reckon? That's not the Star Citizen way.
Well, we
It's-
don't really know that because we only have mining and trade and then like missions. So like,
Yeah, and trade is very early days as well. I mean, that's the thing I'm
hmm
most looking for: dynamic
same.
economy and the trading app. I just want the trading app so badly now, um, just so that I can try and plan cool routes and sell and sell stuff. Um, yeah, is definitely the thing I'm most looking forward to, and the cargo decks and things like that. And there'll probably be a fuel aspect to the cargo decks as well, I think.
So,
Um, yeah, I mean the whole refueling thing of you just hover over a pad and fuel magically, automagically goes into your fuel tank is obviously useless. So there's got to be a mechanic for it, but yeah, I get why some people look from the outside at this project and go, "This is insane. Stop making it so complicated." But like, that's why we're here. We
that's
want
right. We came for the Chris Roberts experience.
absolutely. We want it to be ludicrous.
Because I mean,
Um,
he's like Quentin Tarantino. You know, he only has so many of these in his whole life. So we're
yeah,
just
no,
here for the ride,
absolutely.
man.
um, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people at CIG that you talk to, and you can tell in the way that they talk that this is their final project. They have no intention of doing anything else after Star Citizen. They're going to do this until they retire. Um, and it's I like that. I think it probably doesn't help to add to the um, sort of impetus to get things done quickly, potentially, because you're not trying to get it done and move on. But it's to put your heart and soul into it is going to be your defining project, is going to be the one you go out on. So I think that you're all in with it all the time, and I think that's the best way to be. I think that's what's going to produce Star Citizen. My biggest concern for it is that it's not a commercial success to the degree it should be, um, and I don't know whether that's going to require some form of console being involved. I don't know.
What do you mean when you
Um,
say commercial success?
like rolling the money in for the next 10, 15 years like World of Warcraft did. Um, is it going to be that profitable for a consistently long amount of time to make CIG make enough money to carry on developing this game to the degree that they want to develop it? Because it's things like people go, oh, about Squadron. It's like, but everyone's already paid for Squadron. It's like releasing Squadron just by itself doesn't necessarily make you a bean. You've got to get new players in to buy it because we already own it. And I think the keeping Star Citizen going, where I think there's more chance of it now in that you don't need a huge PC to play it. I mean, I can play it on Cal's rig, and it's not a really expensive rig. Yes, you couldn't play it in 4K or something, but it's a decent game experience. The new consoles coming out, the sort of fifth generation consoles, are probably as powerful as this rig. So there's no real reason why consoles won't be able to play Star Citizen.
Yeah,
And you sort of
I hope
you
so.
compare that to things like CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk will make more money on release than Star Citizen has in 5 years, because they're selling it on Stadia, PS4, PS5, Xbox, and PC. And that as an audience, as a marketplace, that's 10 times the size of just selling on PC. So, it's they will. I will say that CD Projekt Red are a lot better at marketing than CIG as well, which is no surprise because they've been doing it for a long time. They've got a lot of experience, and most of marketing is experience. But they will make more money in their first week of release than CIG has made to this date. I guarantee it.
You never know the future, to be honest. That's one
No,
thing.
and you never do. And I say I really hope that CIG find I mean, they're fine at the moment. We say we just keep giving them more money, but I hope they find a path with Star Citizen to make it really commercially successful. Because that opens up so many other possibilities for them. They also have the engine, of course. I mean, they can license
Yeah.
the engine out as well, depending on their agreement with Amazon. Um, but I don't think that Star Citizen, as in the Persistent Universe, can go to console because I think it's too complicated.
I think
But
everything is in Squadron.
maybe, but again, it's can you do it without a HOTAS and all the key bindings and everything? What I do think they could put onto console, which would be a great gateway drug for people, is Theatres of War and Star Marine and Arena Commander. Because they are supposed to be games within the game. So you can console it up a little bit and simplify the controls enough to be able to play it on a gamepad easily. And then that brings in esports. And esports is going to be such a massive industry in 5 years' time. It's already big. It's already big. It's going to be huge. So I mean, imagine if one of the top 10 esports games was a Star Citizen genre game. It was Arena Commander or Star Marine or Theatres of War or something. Because people would then see it all the time and go, "Wow, this game's incredible!" And then they will go, "Oh, we can live in this game as well. I'm going to go and buy a PC." And I think that's realistically the easiest way for them to do it because I don't think I think that Chris Roberts had no intention of porting it to console, and therefore it would probably be really difficult at this point to port the PU, just because it's so massive. It'll be interesting. I mean, I'm sure someone will run it. I mean, someone can put a PC emulator into the hardware and see whether an Xbox can run it. I think hardware wise, it'll be fine. I think it's just the input thing and getting Microsoft behind it and all that kind of stuff. There's an awful lot. Um, yeah, they could use Stadia. I think Stadia should be all right. I mean,
I
you can
don't
run it
think
on.
I don't think you need a HOTAS either. Like, who's that guy? I always forget his name, but he's the dude who plays at CitizenCon, and he always plays with the console controller.
Oh, yes, Glenn.
I think
So
that
yes, Glenn always plays. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't. So his movement is with a controller, but he still has a keyboard in front of him to do all the hotkeying. So as long as you can attach a keyboard to it, I suppose it's not an issue. So it's interesting why Glenn does that. Do you know why he uses a controller?
I thought it's for marketing purposes to be like, hey, our game is really easy to play.
It's not, interestingly. It's to do with the massive video wall. So they discovered that if you use mouse and keyboard or HOTAS or so, the movement, especially on foot, the movement with a mouse is really jerky. And when you see it on a massive video wall, it's a really unpleasant experience. So
Gotcha.
he uses a controller because it produces a smoother motion. The character doesn't turn and jolt around as much with a controller. So he uses a controller when he's doing the live presentations to make it a smoother gaming experience.
That makes so much
Um,
sense.
yeah, I'd never thought about it, and so we get on quite well with Glenn because we obviously worked with 3 CitizenCons with him now, and there's the story about the jump he missed, and it was we it's a complicated thing because obviously this is the not last year before the Austin where he missed the jump
Oh,
however
right.
many times
On the burning satellite.
on the burning satellite.
Yeah.
But the
That was
question is,
hilarious.
do you know why he missed the jump?
You're saying he missed it on purpose? It's a
No,
conspiracy?
no, he didn't. I can tell you exactly why he missed the jump. So it was because of the monitors. So the monitors were we didn't build the desk that year. That's why it was a problem.
The problem
Basically, is
because
what
you
I'm
didn't
saying.
hire JRDF.
Well, the problem was that there was no. It was ludicrous for us to build a piece of furniture and ship it to Austin for that. I mean, that would have just been insane.
Yeah.
So we obviously didn't do the furniture that year, and the company that had done them did the furniture for it. It was the sort of like red CitizenCon desk. The monitors were set into the desk at a 45-degree angle, which seemed to be the perfect angle for, so you could see the person behind them, so they were looking down on the monitors. Because one of the things they didn't like about 2017, they just used our Gamescom desks and just had a PC on them, so he was sort of hidden behind the screen. So I get why that didn't look great on stage. um, but where they'd put this desk on the stage, the lighting rig was right above it and was just shining straight on the screen, straight in his face, and he basically couldn't see the screen.
Oh.
Could barely see it. And of course, he can't see the massive video wall behind him because he's standing in front of it. So he was like, he literally could not see the game to play it. So he was flying pretty much blind. So this last year, we built the stage desk that was on stage for the event, and we did an awful lot. We worked with Glenn and Hassan, who's one of the IT guys at Winslow, and we knew from the very start when we got commissioned to do the desk, it's like, right, we're going to involve these people from the beginning and make sure this doesn't happen again. And it was made worse because it was the monitors this time were sunk right into the desk, like a sort of TV newsreader's desk, with a big acrylic top. So you look through the acrylic to the screen. So you're adding another layer of potential glare from the lights. So you had to do an awful lot to make sure that this worked. So we were working with LEP, who are the guys that actually, the production company that did the event. So we designed the lighting rig with them to make sure there was definitely going to be no spotlights at the wrong angle to bounce back. We put Predator monitors, the 1,000 nit Predator monitors, into the desk, so they were super bright. We had them adjustable inside so that if there was any bounce back, we could tweak them. And so we put an awful lot of effort to make sure he didn't miss another jump because he couldn't see the screen. So, and in the end, it worked really well. And one of the great comments of that big stage desk was it was really nice to see both the players, not with monitors in front of them and all that kind of stuff. So I did feel it worked. It did look really good on stage, having a desk that you couldn't really see the monitors at all from the audience point of view. But yeah, a lot of effort went in to make sure he didn't miss another jump. So I hope that next time he doesn't end up with a rubbish desk again and missing stuff.
Are
But
they
yeah,
gonna haul that desk around like every CitizenCon now? Is that gonna be like their gaming desk?
it will be for Europe, I would think, but not for the US. This is the thing. I mean, to physically post something like that to the States is thousands of pounds, because I suppose you could sea freight it during the year, but there's you're sort of putting things in shipping containers and hoping that it don't get damaged. Um, Considering they do every other year in Europe and every other year in America at the moment, it makes more economic sense just to have a desk in each continent and just move it around. um, because yeah, for the cost of actually building these things, um, you would pay for a whole of the desk in 2 years of shipping basically, and it's a lot less effort just to have it stored. So I think, and the other thing is, there's nothing stopping them bringing out for concierge events and things like that. So it'll probably get 2 or 3 outings in that 2 year period. Like I imagine if the concierge event this year had been in Europe, it would have probably gone to that for their presentation desk. So things like that. So it would get used over here and then have another one in the States, or just have a new one built every year in the States. I don't know. I say I can't see a lot of our furniture ever ending up in America, um, just because of shipping costs. I think of these big bits of furniture. I don't know of a company in the States that does similar stuff to us, i.e., takes game assets and makes like perfect replicas of them, um, because they haven't had that done at the American Citizen Cons. But I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there is someone in the States that can do it. Um, we've been asked a few times by other companies and people, oh, could you do the design work for a manufacturer over here? It's like, not really. It's a very all-encompassing, thing. We do it start to finish for a reason. I couldn't give people files that were perfect to then say make this. It would be cheaper for me just to make it. Um, so yeah, so I can't I say I can't see our furniture ending up in the States. Um, but we'll see. You never know.
I'm not sure
It's,
if you necessarily want to get into the furniture business, if that's a good business to be in.
um,
About it.
I mean, the furniture business for us is more the event side of it. So it's like the CitizenCon desk, like the because we did also the a lot of people don't realize we did the Pisces screens at CitizenCon last year, the big lit up blueprint things, and things like that. I quite like doing those little projects because they're quite striking. And I like building big stuff. I do like building big stuff. I could see us going down the route of just doing what we class as hero props in the events industry. So doing the krakens, the dragonflies, um, that kind of stuff, rather than desks and furniture and stuff. But Star Citizen is really cool because you can take all the assets and recreate them. The props team do such an amazing job at designing this furniture and walls and doors and all this sort of stuff. Everything is buildable. And I would love the opportunity to do like a full Star Citizen set at some point for an event. I think that would be absolutely awesome. Or their office, if they like move office to a huge building or something, and we can build the inside of a ship. The other thing is, I would love to build a full size ship interior
That'd
for
be
an
cool.
event,
Starfare,
because
definitely Starfare.
yeah, I think Starfarer,
Call
believe it or not,
dibs.
Starfarer or Caterpillar would be my current thinking. Obviously,
Caterpillar.
not the whole thing because they're huge, but when you do events like Gamescom, thinking when they go and do Gamescom again with Squadron, if they do it, Star Citizen is an 18 rated game. So that means when you go to events like E3 and Gamescom, you have to have a completely enclosed stand. You're not allowed to be able to see any screens or any gameplay from outside the stand because there's people of all age groups at the event. So it has to be completely enclosed, and you have to be able to queue up on the outside and then go in through a door, and then you've got this interior space. Now that's amazing if you want to do a completely encapsulating experience. So you could have a trade stand that was the inside of a Caterpillar module is about the right size, sort of like 12 meters square. Um, and you could basically go in, and then you'd be inside a Caterpillar cargo module, and then all the gaming desks and stuff would be set up inside it. And that would be, I think, a really cool trade stand for Star Citizen.
I was thinking
Um,
of the cockpit actually. I think the cockpit would be super easy to do as a trade stand. You just set up a couple of chairs, and then you just make the Millennium
you
Falcon frame.
You could, but the issue is it's the number of people you could get on it. You need to be able to get at least 40 people inside it at any one time, and at least 30 people playing the game
Oh, I
at the same
see.
time.
I see. I
Because
was thinking to have a couple of terminals, 2 terminals. That's it.
it's going to take a long time to get 60,000 people through it, though. I'm trying to think. When we did Gamescom in 2017, we had 14. No, we had 12 gaming rigs, and then the 4 streamers at the back. And people were queuing from 7, 8 in the morning when it opened to the end of day for a whole week.
So
Um,
you're really talking about building a whole ship almost then.
um,
Like when
no,
you say
more
Starfare, what were you thinking?
the cargo bay.
The cargo bay. I was thinking the cockpit. That's crazy. You want to build the cargo bay? That's
The cockpit's
huge.
nowhere. Well, yes, I know, but I say a trade stand is about 12 meters by 12 meters. It's a relatively small trade stand because I say you've got to have room to have ideally 20 rigs set up, plus room for people to queue, because you need to. This is the thing about events like Gamescom. People queue. That's seemingly all they do at Gamescom is just queue for hours and hours and hours. So you need to have enough room on the inside for at least 60 people to queue, probably.
That's a
Plus,
huge trade stand, by the way. I've never seen it.
yeah.
I don't know if I've seen a trade stand that big before.
Well, I mean, the one that we had at Gamescom 2017 was 10 by 8, which was a relatively small size. It sounds bigger than it is.
10
Um,
meters.
yeah, it's not.
Wow.
That's not that big. Genuinely isn't that big. I mean, that only fitted because the other thing you've got, because there's so many people on it. It looks big until you put 100 people on it, and then it looks cramped. But I mean, I'm trying to think. What's the Overwatch stand at 2017 was probably 30 meters by 20, something like that. They had 400 rigs on it
That's crazy.
playing all at the same time. I mean, it's a vast. I mean, a big events like Gamescom are vast. Um, and yeah, you need a lot of room because you need a backstage area for all the volunteers to put all their stuff. You need a tech room for all the servers. There's a lot. You have to cram an awful lot onto them. And I say the more gaming rigs you can have, the faster you can get people moving through, or the longer you can let people play for. Because that's the thing. It's like in 2017, I think there was 15 minutes of gameplay, and then you're off. So they did it sort of in like 15-minute sessions, I think, if I remember correctly. So you can only every hour you're only putting 48 people through the game, and when there's hundreds and hundreds of people that want to come and try it, you don't want to cut their experience down. You don't want, I mean, people queue for perhaps 2-3 hours. You don't want to then give them 5 minutes of the game. So you want to give them, especially with Star Citizen, because you got to have enough time to teach them how to play it, because a lot of these people have never played the game before. And I think that's why Star Citizen may never go back to Gamescom, if I'm honest. Squadron probably will, but Star Citizen as a game takes so long to get into,
Mm-hmm.
and the vast majority of people at Gamescom are teenagers, and that's not the market for Star Citizen. I think that's why Chris wants to go down the route like Blizzard of doing CitizenCon, their own event, rather than going to other people's.
Could be theaters of war.
Yes, this war would be good again because it is far more esportsy,
Yeah.
um, and especially if they simplify the controls a little bit from the PU, which might be a little tricky because you've got ships to fly in it and stuff, but you perhaps have to just tune down the amount of complexity in it. Make it, as Drew said, make it more accessible. Theatre of War would be great because it worked really well at CitizenCon last year,
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard.
really, really well. And it was buggy as fuck, but it still worked. It was, as an experience, that sort of, because you're in a timed arena and everything, perfect. Really was.
I
So I
think
think,
I think it's important for them to get out to more conventions. And like, I was
mm,
talking with some of my streamers like a couple days ago just about the fact that their tech demos were always like superior for GamesCon compared to CitizenCon. So I don't know if there's any value in that at all. But I mean, hey, it's just like you too. You go to a trade show and that's where you do your sales, right? And your marketing.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think the biggest issue with doing trade shows, and I think the thing that a lot of people either forget or don't realize, is the cost.
Yeah.
So it is eye-watering how much it costs to go to a trade event as a company. So something like Gamescom, they are looking at somewhere between £1,000 to £1,500 per square meter of trade stand space. Um, so you could easily be looking at 100,000, something like that, to have a big stand there for the week. You then have to pay a couple of thousand for electricity, usually about $500 per rigging point for any truss and stuff you have. You're not allowed to unload your own trucks. You have to pay 700 quid to have your truck unloaded. The cost, and that's before you've even built a trade stand. So realistically, a big trade stand at Gamescom will set you back £250,000 easy. Um, which is fine if you're going to get that much, um, get that much worth of marketing out of it, which a lot of companies will. If you're launching, because this is the thing, most game companies, launch a game every year, sell that game at Gamescom or a similar thing. All the money comes flowing in, and then it sort of then peters out over the next 12 months. And at the next game come, they launch another game, and that's how their market works. They put all their effort behind launching a game a year, and that's how they make their money. Um, Whereas Star Citizen is completely opposite to that. It's the slow burn of of getting money into the game. So whether I don't think it's worth Star Citizen spending that kind of money to be at an event like that, unless they have more of a sort of squadron product or a theaters of war specific product to sell to the masses. And I say, especially when you know um, their market is older people than tend to be on average at Gamescom. I say it's more of a mid-20s, I think, is probably the average, maybe less, maybe early 20s is probably your average age at Gamescom. There's bound to be statistics for it. You get a lot more value for money doing your own event because you hire a venue and then you do your own stuff. You're not being charged excessive amount and then you can sell your own tickets, because that's the other thing. You have to pay to be at Gamescom. You can't make money out of it. It's impossible. It is a cost. It is a marketing cost. Whereas if you do your own event, in theory, you're selling tickets for it, so you might break even. Maybe, don't know. You'd have to spend a lot of money. If you only got 1,000 people going to an event, you would have to charge an awful lot to break even on CitizenCon, to be fair. But CitizenCon will get bigger. I think it'll keep getting bigger as the game gets bigger. I think CitizenCon could easily be 5,000 people eventually,
Yeah, did you
without
hear?
any real issue.
Did you listen to or watch Xylo on the Yacht Club the other night?
No, I didn't. I missed it.
He was saying that they wanted to break the booths up into like categories.
Hmm.
So I guess there would be an exponential increase in the amount of booths, which makes things kind of interesting.
The booths are really good value for money for them, though, because they get to fill the really big space that I'm spending.
That's
So
100%. Yeah. So like,
yeah,
what if they just do 100 booths or something like that, and it's like,
yeah,
hey, well, this is the biggest Citizen Con yet.
yeah. And I think the booths last year were amazing. I mean, yes, okay, they I did like, to a degree, I liked what LEP did with the bazaar, like the set for the bazaar, with the scaffolding booths, and there was a little bit too much smoke, I think,
Oh
maybe.
God, it was horrible.
It
Everyone was
was
like
like,
choking. Nobody could breathe. I
I
felt
think
bad.
there's a stand here. Oh yes, here it is. Yeah, it was a little much.
That's not even an
And it,
exaggeration. People are actually running
no,
into things.
it was crazy, and it was a bit dark. Um, but yeah, in general, it was a really cool atmosphere. Um, and yeah, you could do that 5 times the size, um, provided that. I think the issue with it is that apart from us, as JRDF, everyone there was doing it for the fun of it. There was no profit to be made. It was just cost. Because we were the only people who were allowed to sell anything. So most times when you do a trade stand for something, you're doing it to make money on, or at least try to break even. Whereas I suppose Game Glass were technically flogging a product. They couldn't sell it on the day, but they couldn't. Well, so people could go to the website and sign up. So I suppose they could. But I think CIG might have to be a little bit more generous with their licenses
I
and
agree.
things like that to
I
yeah,
always have a
yeah.
bias. I was ready to sell. I had everything
Yeah,
good to go. And if they said, yep, sure at it. And then I would have, because I brought all those books. I had all those books printed,
yeah.
right? And like, I'm talking about this, next year, maybe, fingers crossed. And like, legal team dialed in. Let's do it.
I think the other thing is that CIG aren't the first people that I've dealt with from a point of view of licensee stuff and all that kind of thing. First time I've done a B2C product through licensing, but the issue is that with anything you want to sell with their IP on it has to go through them. And because they have such a big company now, it has to go to the specific people that can make decisions on it. So if you're selling a book or something like that, it's got to go through the art team, it's got to go through the law team. It's not just one person that signs it off. It's perhaps 5, 6 people that are going to sign it off. So it's yeah, it is complicated, and they are very protective of their IP, which I understand. But they do need to be a little bit more generous with licenses, I think. Um, Especially, oh yeah, no, Cal's just made a good point. The Daymar Rally shirts were on sale, I think, on the stand, and they were brilliant. And they're a really good example, actually, of CIG getting licensing right for fan stuff, because they let Corsair do a really nice shirt with Star Citizen logos on it, and his logos, and your logo was on it. And so that one of the things that's really hard to get through CIG legal is to have a product that has a combination of their IP and other people's IP, because then that is a tangible connection between their company and your company. And that's something that's really, I mean, it's hard to do for anything. Um, so that's something that's really hard to get past. It's a lot easier if you want to do something with just their IP on it. So it's a lot easier to do something for a trade show that just has Star Citizen logos on. But as soon as you want to start putting your own logo on it as well, then it becomes a problem, because then there has to be a contractual relationship between your two companies to make that a thing. So we do it through our license agreement to make products. So we have products that have their logos and our logos on. But that's all written into that contractual relationship between the companies. So to do one-off products and things with that crossover of IP, the legal team struggles with, I think. But I say they did it with Corsair, so there is now precedent of that happening, and I guess they need to relax it a bit, because things like the Daymar Rally, things like you guys, it's all promoting stuff in their game,
Totally.
and it's they're just paranoid about being sued, or
Or
that
blamed for it.
they're,
That's the
they're
thing.
so litigious. It's just they're so American.
In most cases, I would like put hatred or anger towards lawyers, but I feel like the CIG lawyers just don't get a break. You know?
No comment.
No comment. All right.
I think
That's
we're
probably
verging
smart.
into territory that we know them too well. So, but yeah, no, they have a big legal team for obvious reasons, because they've had
Yeah.
some legal stuff to do recently,
Couple of.
and it probably makes them a little bit more paranoid than we perhaps think they should be. But we've got to remember that they have been embroiled in a huge legal case for over 12 months, so they probably do feel it a little bit.
And
Um,
like on Reddit, probably like once a month, some person posts like a Facebook ad of like some stupid Facebook Star Spaceship game, and this like Star
yeah,
Citizenships that are ripped off, and I'm like,
yeah.
man, it sucks.
No, absolutely, and it is a more than a full-time job for a whole team of lawyers, and it's just I just hate lawyers in general, or
Yeah,
well, I don't hate lawyers. I just hate the whole legal process,
yeah,
and
same.
yeah, dealing with the US side of it as well. The US legal system is so weird
They
for
take it
us
really
Europeans.
seriously, hey? Like I noticed that as a Canadian, we don't take it as
Ah,
seriously as they do.
yeah, and just insurance and stuff in the States is insane. It's one of the reasons why I'm unlikely to do actually properly do events in the US. I couldn't be bothered with the paperwork, and the unions and all this sort of stuff. It's just like, nah, it's just not worth it. It really isn't worth it. Um, we're lucky in Europe in that we have events insurance that covers us for pretty much everything, and provided you're not an idiot, they will pay out and will cover you. Um, Whereas in the States, every little thing has to be considered, and I mean, we risk assess everything. Most of the events industry is based on risk assessment. I mean, the company I used to work for, we had a rig called Dinner in the Sky. It was the only one in the UK, and it was basically a dining table that you put 25 people around the outside and 5 people in the middle, or 22 people on the outside and 5 in the middle. So you had 27 total, and then you would attach that to a crane and take it up to 150 feet, and just hang it in the air. and we used to have a bar on this, and we used to have Michelin star chefs up there cooking live for people on this thing, and we had no issue with insurance in all the years we did it. And you sort of think, I can't even imagine doing that in the States. Um, just making things so risk free that you could do that sort of thing. I just don't see how you do it.
I feel like it's
Um,
like encouraged in American culture to have a lawsuit. Like if
yeah,
ever there's an opportunity, it's like, oh, there's a lawsuit. Like
absolutely,
it's like
and
a
it's
way of
just
making a living, maybe. I don't know.
no, absolutely. I think the other thing is I don't know what it's like in Canada, but in Europe, if you want to sue somebody, it's going to cost you money, and if you lose, you have to cover all your opponent's costs as well. And in America, it seems to be this whole thing of, well, you can just sue people, and if you lose, then you don't really lose out as a company. um so you can just sue people left, right, and center. It's not a big deal. Whereas here, it would cost you a huge amount to sue somebody. And if you don't win, it's going to cost you a lot more. So people have to actually think about it a bit more over here. um, and I say our insurance system works in that if something goes wrong, they deal with it, they pay out, and it doesn't require a lawsuit on top of the insurance. That's what the insurance is there for. If something goes wrong, the insurance company covers it, and there's no real need for a lot of legal messing about unless you feel like you were hard done by. But it seems to be the whole thing in the States of, well, I'm going to sue you anyway.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
hmm. It doesn't. The problem is it doesn't encourage people to do cool, fun things, because why bother with the paperwork? So yeah, I think you get more interesting stuff happening over here, events wise. Certainly, the States is quite tame for events and stuff compared to Europe.
I'll have to go to
Um,
Germany, I guess. You convinced me.
yeah, there's some crazy stuff that gets done over here. A lot of temporary stuff as well. Sort of like just one-off event rigs and things that are built. That I say, I might be wrong. I don't have the experience over in the States to work out how you would do it. But certainly I know exactly how you do it over here, and it's not a great challenge. Um, I know that there are two dinner in the sky rigs as an example in the States, but they're both in Las Vegas, and they're both owned by the same guy, and he doesn't move them. He has them set up as a permanent installation in this lot in the States, in middle of Vegas, and makes a huge amount of money off it. But I imagine it's a lot easier because it's a sort of permanent installation rather than moving it about all the time.
What is
Um,
dinner in the sky?
so this is where you lift this dining table up to about 150 feet on a crane, and you just have diners on it. Just Google dinner in the sky. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna
It's
Google this right now.
Yeah, it is. It's a cool rig. I say the company I used to work for had one,
Oh, that's
and
pretty cool. Yeah.
we ran it for. I think I ran it for about 3 years. Um, yeah,
You get like
it.
seatbelts or something?
Yeah, you're basically in 5 point racing harnesses from cars.
Is the food any good?
Um, Depends who's cooking.
Mm.
Um, we had Gordon Ramsay on it once. He was
Oh,
quite fun.
that's cool.
Um,
That'd be
we
fun.
had we've had we had a lot of Michelin star chefs on it. Some were better with heights than others. Um, Heston Blumenthal loved it. We did actually a Channel 4 program with him. He really enjoyed it. Um, some of the chefs didn't think amazingly hard about their menus, I will say. I think because they were obviously just doing their sort of what their menu was at the moment, but they didn't consider, will this work at 150 feet? And things like salads, not so much because they blow off the plate. Um,
Mm.
Soup is a bad move. Um, the other issue is that you're strapped to the chair in a 5 point harness. And it's amazing how much you don't realize when you eat, you lean forwards over your plate.
Okay.
You can't do that when you're strapped to a chair. So you have to bring the spoon to you. To be honest, the Michelin star dinners were a novelty. We used to do them in London quite a lot. But the thing that worked best on it was just to have it as a bar. Jen Despardo says they have the same thing in Australia. They do. They have a franchise in Australia, and we were so jealous of them. Um, Australia is the perfect country to do Dinner in the Sky. UK is really bad to do Dinner in the Sky because it's windy and it's
Mm.
rainy and it's never good weather to do it. It's never perfect weather to do it. Whereas in Australia, the company that had it over there, um, got a long-term contract, I think a 3-year contract with Bundesberg Rum for doing the Aussie football matches. So they would rock up at the stadium with the crane, and they redid the table so that they took all the seats off it, and they attached outward-facing sofas along one side of it, and then had a Bundesberg Rum bar effectively behind the people, and they used to float it above the football game. And
Cool. That's
it's
excellent.
awesome because you get this weird shift of perspective, because even though it wasn't actually above the field of play, when you take something up to that height right on the edge, you feel like you're right over it, so you feel like you're kind of on the pitch floating above it. And they just did it as a promo thing, and that was the other key with this as a thing. If people were paying their own money to go on this thing, it was a lot harder to make them happy, because it's not a cheap thing. It was £22,000 a day to hire. So if you were doing dinners and stuff on it, it was like £500 a head for, yes, you were getting a Michelin star dinner, but probably not in as good a setting as going to their restaurant. Um, so as a bar, it worked all right, but even so, it's a really expensive bar. If you were having to pay for it, where it worked really, really well is when companies used to hire it, like Barclaycard and Bundesberg and companies like that, to do it as prizes for people or just as a marketing exercise, so that people going on it weren't paying anything. It was just a cool experience they were having, being paid for by a company, and people just have a whale of a time. The other amazing place to take it was sort of festivals. We did Hyde Park Festival in London for 4 years, so I did 3 years of that, and that was paid by Barclaycard. And same trick. You would take it up right on the edge of the crowd for the stage, so you felt like you were above the crowd watching all the live music and stuff, and that was phenomenal. And you just have a champagne bar up there, and you just get to watch the show from up high, best seat in the house.
What is it
Uh,
you used to do for this company?
so the company was, there was only 4 of us in the company, so we ran it. So we would set the table up, we would run the table. I was a safety driver of one of my many things. So if it all went tits up, I had to rescue everybody. It was only me and Ian that were trained to do that, and both of us just crossed our fingers that it would never have to be done.
So what, did you operate the crane?
No, so they wouldn't let us play with the crane, unfortunately. Apparently, you need loads of qualifications to do that.
Mm,
The company though was really interesting. So the crane company we used was a company called Lee Lifting, and people might have come across them as a company because their base of operations was the airfield where Top Gear were based, and
cool.
they did all of Top Gear stunts. So if you go back on the back catalogue of the daft things that Top Gear did, occasionally you'll see the crane. It's a big green crane with Lee Lifting written on it, and they're all chroma key green as cranes because they use them for filming an awful lot. So they do all the filming rigs for Pinewood Studios. Um, and there was this great moment so this was, God, I have to work out what year it was. One of the Hyde Park Festival jobs we did, second one I did. Um, Sometimes Lee Lifting wouldn't have the right size crane for us. We used a 220-ton crane just because it was a nice size jib and stuff for what we did. Um, and if their crane wasn't available, they would subcontract a different crane. And that year, I don't know what we'd done, but the Crane Drivers Union of the UK fell out with us as a company for an unknown reason, and declared that no crane company was allowed to do Dinner in the Sky anymore. Otherwise, it would void the warranty of the crane.
Hmm.
I assume it was some insurance thing, or Dale, the guy that owned the company, rubbed someone up the wrong way. Um, but so effectively, no crane company, apart from Lee Lifting, who didn't care, could do Dinner in the Sky. So Lee phoned us to go, "There's no crane." It's like, "What do you mean there's no crane? This is a £250,000 job. We really need a crane." And he said, "Well, we'll just send the 220 tonner." It's like, "We can't. It's on the set of Star Wars." So they were filming Force Awakens, and it was one of the camera rig cranes for Force Awakens at Pinewood. So we had to pay the guys at Pinewood 5 grand cash to de-rig the Lee lifting crane, sneak it out of Pinewood, sneak a mammoth crane in, wrap the jib in green vinyl, and hang the cameras back on it so that we could have our crane back in Hyde Park by the next day, so that we could actually do the event. It was mad. But that's all that Lee lifting do now is his dad was a normal crane operator company guy who did kind of building sites and stuff, and Lee was a spoilt brat who self-admittedly didn't want to work on building sites because they were dirty. But his dad did occasional camera rig work. So Lee just decided when he inherited the company, that's all he was going to do. He was going to specialize in doing film and TV work. So that's all he did. So he didn't care that he voided the warranties of his cranes and all this sort of stuff because he charged a huge amount to do it. So he did all the stunts for James Bond. You know, which James Bond where the plane goes through the forest and the wings fall off and stuff. They drove 2 cranes from London to Austria to do that stunt and then drove them back again. Because there's no one else in Europe that will do the work he does. So he didn't care that we were the issue that the people had, the crane guys had, that we were lifting untrained personnel with a crane, because obviously the people going on the table, the customers, weren't trained to be, they weren't harness trained or anything to go up on the
Mm.
crane. So they saw that as an unacceptable risk, even though they were only legally responsible for the hook upwards. But I say it's events are always entertaining just from a logistics point
That's
of view
true.
of how to make these things work. And that was probably the most fun events that I've ever done, is just setting those events up, and getting the cranes into ludicrously tight places in London, because most of the time we were doing events in the middle of London, and the streets of London are not designed to take a 220-ton crane through. So that's entertaining just to get it there.
That's wild,
Um,
man. I'd never
it,
heard of this before.
it's I think there's about 40 tables worldwide. They're all built by a Belgian company, interestingly. And we modify. I mean, pretty much everyone modifies them when they get them for specific events. We converted it into a table tennis table once and had Gary Lineker and someone else playing table tennis above the London Eye. I mean, you do random stuff with them. But I think I say the biggest issue that our company had doing it was making it profitable when the weather was so bad, because there were so much points of the year that you just couldn't think about using it. Whereas people in Australia and the guy in Vegas were using it all year round, constantly using it. So I think it's one of those novelties. Though I did see one in Cologne actually when we were coming back from Gamescom. There was one above the Rhine. So they're about, people have occasionally, people have seen them about, but as I say, I don't think there's one in Canada. Again, be a weather thing, be a bit cold.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a place you'd actually want to have it, like anywhere.
No, you want Australia's a good place to have it with
Mm-hmm.
a bar. It's perfect.
Yep.
Um, yeah, no, I think it's one of those. It's one of those events if we got into sport more with it, I think that we couldn't find a football ground or a rugby ground that wanted to let us in to do it. If we'd done that, I think it would have been more popular. The other issue is that obviously there's no toilet on it, so you do have to drop it every so
Ooh,
often when
yikes.
people are drinking.
Oh, that's a horrible idea. Okay, I take this all back.
um, so yeah, it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing for like a 15 minutes. I say music festivals work well because you can go up for half a set, have some drinks, drop people down, change the people, take people back up, and yeah, it's quite good for that. But yeah, rainy, miserable Scotland doesn't work well.
Not so much. Yeah.
Nah. No one wants to be outside, let alone 150 foot up outside. I mean, it's sort of like a canopy above it to stop you getting directly rained on, but
Yeah, yeah, that's the image that I had up before. It had a little
yeah.
canopy on it.
And we actually extended our canopy. It was one of the first mods I did to that table was we made it we made the umbrella bigger because it rained
It
so
rained
much
so
at our
much.
events. Yeah, so we made it bigger. Which obviously made it even worse in the wind because it was a bigger sail.
Right.
Um, and it swings around a lot more than you realize. And that was one of the biggest problems with rescuing people from it, was how you rescue people from it. So the original thing we had was a huge cherry picker that went all the way up to the table, but you couldn't get it too close because the table was swinging by meters, and the table weighs 7.5 tons. So if it hit the cherry picker, it would just knock it over like a demolition ball. And then you had to persuade people to basically jump from the table into the cherry picker. It's not a good plan.
I could see
It's
some
not a good plan.
insurance issues with that. Yeah.
They were tethered. It was fine, but it was just a challenge of if we ever had to do it, convincing people to do it would have been a nightmare.
I'd
And the
do
thing
it.
was,
I'd do it.
yeah, I mean, if it was if it was the only way down, I think people might have done. But the biggest issue, it was that even London Fire Brigade didn't have a rescue platform high enough to rescue people
That's a
from it.
problem. Yeah.
So that's why we had to take our own rescue package with it because there was no other way of doing it. Um, so that was one of the plans. Occasionally, we would, if there was room on the site, we would actually bring two cranes, so that if one crane broke down, we could transfer the table to the other crane, um, which was hilarious. We did try that once. Um, so you just basically hold on to the hook of the second crane and it takes you up, and then you attach it to the table and then take the slack off and then unhook the other crane. Um, so that was a bit hairy because the actual hook itself weighs a ton,
Oh my.
just over 1 ton.
Heavy hook.
So it's quite difficult to unhook it.
I always watch
Um,
the SpaceX live stream. I don't know if you watch it,
mm,
but the construction
yeah,
of Starship, La Padres,
yes.
whatever stream. And I had never seen cranes like this before. So like you probably all know about them, but hearing that
Uh,
that's the weight of one of those
Oh,
uh,
cranes are so cool though.
yeah,
I did get the crane that we used was a Kato 220-ton crane. Um and it was fascinating. It cost £3.5 million new. And it was and they replaced them every 3 years. And it was one of the most technological things I'd ever
I
seen in my
believe it.
life.
I don't
It
even
had
understand how they work, you know that?
I mean, I understand the mechanics of it, but the computer systems on it are absolutely immense, and you're fighting the computer all the time because it has so many safety systems on it. So it has an anemometer at the top of the jib that's constantly measuring wind speed, and it measures average wind speeds and logs all the wind speeds. So in a 15-minute period, if the average wind speed gets above a certain amount, it will stop you being able to lift. And if you get a single gust above a certain amount, it will lock you out as well for 15 minutes. So you can only bring the hook down, you can't take it up. And that was one of the biggest issues we had with Dinner in the Sky, is that every so often it would lock you and make you drop the table down. And you couldn't override it. If you thought, it's not that windy, you know. But the issue was, of course, that was the wind speed at the top of the jib. So sometimes you'd be lifting, and the jib would be above the buildings around you, but you would kind of be protected by the building, so the table wasn't moving much at all, but it was just windier at the top. So you couldn't override it. And they've got fire systems on it, and I mean that was the biggest risk was the crane catching fire, I suppose, um, when you got people up on it. But this thing had its own internal fire suppression systems, and I say it was a really expensive piece of kit. Um, and the thing that blew my mind was watching the driver drive it into sites, because it was an 8-axle crane, and every single axle could steer independently. So you could crab across sites, and it could sort of down. You could get it into places that you couldn't get a lorry into because it could sort of do these weird dancing movements and just pan across. It was so cool to watch. But quite an expensive toy if you don't have a good use for it. We did look at buying one rather than hiring it all the time, but serious
Two
money.
million, right? It's kicking
So
around.
2 to 3 million
Yeah.
pounds as well.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's true.
so you're talking $4 million for one vehicle. So, and there's a lot of maintenance you have to do on a crane as well, because you have to have its cable inspected quite often. You got to have full safety inspections every month, um, to make sure it's still in full working order. So yeah, not a cheap thing to run. You need to be able to use it every day, really, to make them worth buying. Um,
Yeah, like how do they even make money off of that? Like where they're actually designed for like construction purposes, right?
yeah, I mean, to hire. Yes, we're still talking about the crane dream. Yeah, I mean, we were £7,500 a day to hire it, so that's where your money is.
Interesting.
And obviously, you also have to pay for the amount of time you are using that crane, including it driving to you. So it would cost us a whole day of hire just to get it to be driven to where we wanted it to be, and then however many days we had it, and then a day for it to drive back home. So it wasn't a cheap thing to hire.
I wonder if
Uh,
SpaceX would buy those cranes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank the gods
If
for
if you
that.
yeah, if you, I mean, that's the thing. If you're using it for a specific purpose, probably for more than 6 months, um, you're probably worth buying it. I would think. Yes, Gals, I have told the green Star Wars crane story. Um,
Cranes are cool. It's okay if you talk about cranes all the time. I would be right there with you.
yeah, no, they are immensely good fun. There is a video, and I've looked for it ages ago, and I couldn't find it. When we did High Park Festival, there was this parkour guy who was famous on YouTube at the time, and he did this. Barclaycard paid for him to do this parkour video around Hyde Park Festival before it opened. So he was like right up onto the top of the rigging and all this sort of stuff. And then right at the end of the video, he runs across and jumps and does cartwheels across hedges and things, and grabs hold of the hook of the crane. And then he's just taken all the way up to the top of the. We lifted him all the way up, and he just looks like he's holding the hook all the way up to the top. Um, he wasn't just holding the hook. And it's one of those great videos where you watch it. It's like, oh my god, he's so amazing. It's like it took to do a 10-minute video. It took a day and a half to film him running around this, and the whole thing is him just with a GoPro, so it looks like it's all one take, but it's not. We took 4 hours just to get him rigged and take him up on the crane. So he was in a full fly wire harness underneath his clothes, and then the wire went up his arm and then was secured into the internals of the hook. Because we weren't going to lift a human being to 170 feet with no harness. No.
That's true.
But yeah, it looked cool though. It did look cool.
That's important. Real cool, right?
Yeah,
Something really
absolutely.
nice.
And it looked really impressive. It did look like he just jumped in, grabbed the hook, and it went up. But this is the same thing with everything. You've got to be sensible. You can't you can do a lot of cool stuff at very little risk if you do it properly. And that's the line you always tread with events. And I hope that like some of the Star Citizen stuff gets a bit more interesting
Yeah.
as we go forward.
Well, you got me all pumped up now. I'm fantasizing about a 40 square meter trade booth, so
Yeah,
that'd be really
absolutely. And
exciting.
I think, I mean, especially like squadron stuff, it'd be great to do kind of the internals of a bit of an Idris. I mean, the Idris bridge could work quite well, except for the fact that it's mainly glass,
Yeah, that's what I was
because
thinking. Get a bunch of
that's
projectors.
yeah, but when you're going to make it look good, that's the problem. It's just like that's why something like a cargo bay or something. I mean, like a bit of the hangar, the Idris hangar's too big there, but like a cargo bay type thing works really well because there's no windows. It's just there's no windows. It's so much easier. But yeah, no, I'd like to do a squadron related one, Perhaps the inside of a Vandal ship. That'd be quite cool.
That would be
Um,
interesting. Well,
yeah,
is somebody said BMM earlier, so there you go.
yeah. I'm interested to see what the spaces inside that are like. I mean, even just like the small hangars in the yeah, the small hangars in the Kraken as well, like the Dragonfly bays might be quite, and that side hangar that we put the Buccaneer in.
Yeah,
That might they may be small enough to do as a trade stand.
yeah, I agree. And the nice thing
Um,
about the Kraken is that Drake kind of it's like an interesting enough art style because like
yes,
Van Duel is super interesting, but it might be a little too much to do from a fabrication perspective. But
it's a
Drake
lot
is
of
very
carving.
doable. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like Drake. I like Drake from the kit models as well because there's lots of pipes and cables and visible stuff on the outside. It is very nice. I quite like the Cutlass Black engines that we did because we did a 172 Cutlass Black on the Kraken, and that was probably my favorite of the little models. Um, just because you had all the pipe work and stuff in geometry, and they looked it looks very basics are wrong word, but sort of like very exposed, lots of exposed wires and pipes and an engine manifold bits and all that kind of stuff. It does look very, very cool. um it's why I don't particularly like the Origin ships on the inside because they just look like yachts. So
Like
it's
real Earth yachts,
yeah, like
present
really,
day.
which I get that's why they're going for it, but it's like if you tried to replicate that at a trade stand, people would just go around. Is this a yacht?
Yeah.
It doesn't look enough like a spaceship
Yeah.
to sort of get away. Which I gets the point because it's that whole luxury and space. You don't want it to look like a grotty spaceship, but from a point of view of a trade stand, it doesn't really work.
Drake,
Um,
I'd say Drake kind of reminds me of like the Disney theme park spaceship.
yes,
That's what it makes me feel like.
Um, yeah. The other thing the other ship that would be quite good to do is like Reclaimer. That would be the inside of that's very, very sort of alien-esque spaceship. Um, or even like the Hammerhead, like the corridors in the Hammerhead, all the padded sides and stuff is very, very cool and very buildable. Um, but yeah, I think Drake's probably the coolest looking interior. Misk's a bit boring, even though I'm a big Misk fan. I will admit the interiors of Misks are a bit boring. Um, if you were going to build one. Um, Probably the Tumbrel, the Nova, the tank would be a cool trade stand because that's
Yeah.
about the right size for a trade stand. It's just a tank. But whether it sells Star Citizen well, because people will go, so it's a tank game. It's like no, it's a space game. Why have you built a tank? Funny story. I don't think it would really work as the trade stand for it, unfortunately.
That's what I would
Um,
like to do, like the Starfare cockpit as a trade stand,
mm,
or maybe the Freelancer. I don't know, maybe the Starfare. I don't know, one of those two, either Starfare or the Freelancer. But just that perspective, that narrow perspective of looking out into space, I think is like synonymous of Star Citizen. It's quite unique.
Yes, and I think potentially the bigger the better. So potentially we'll see what the Hull series cockpits are like.
That's interesting. I wonder what they'll be like. I
Um,
built one in Minecraft, and it's quite a
oh,
maze.
cool.
Hmm.
I was like, because I can't wait for like the Hull E bridge because it's like it's just going to be vast, but there's
Yeah,
still only like three people in
it's
it.
so big. That's what I mean. Like you
It's
get
so
a
massive.
sense of scale in Minecraft. I'm serious.
Yeah,
I'm like trying to figure out like where is everything? How is this gonna work?
yeah. It's weird because it is going to be just the most sparsely populated bridge of any of them.
Exactly.
It's going to be amazing. It's just going to you're going to have intercom just to talk to the guy over there. Otherwise, you have to yell. Because I mean, realistically, it's only going to have 5 workstations in it. It's only got a crew of 5. Um, so it's going to have no more workstations than the Starfare. It's going to be exactly the same, just massively spread out. It's going to be great. Um, yeah, because they can't. Otherwise, you'd end up with just a forward-facing window if you just ended up having it as a tiny bit of the front. You kind of
And
need the panoramic.
maybe that's what'll happen. Maybe it'll just be this really awkward
I hope not.
spaceship.
I hope not.
I don't
Um,
really care, to be completely honest. I'll love it no matter what.
yeah, that's true. It's Perhaps if you're closer to that letterbox screen, although it'll look
That's
like a
true.
letterbox from the outside, it'll actually be like the full floor. So it'll just be a wall of glass or something with lots of annoying struts in it because it's MISC.
Yes, they need
Um,
struts.
absolutely. I love struts. Don't know what people are talking about. And then this is the thing. It's like, oh, people hate struts. It's just like, well, if everything doesn't have struts, then when you're in the cockpit, every ship's going to look the same.
Totally.
You're just going
Yeah,
to have this amazing view. It's like MISC ships are weird because MISC ships have both the best view and the worst.
that's true.
Because you've got like the Prospector and the Reliant, which are just the bubble canopy, amazing view, and then you've got the like freelancers and the stuff. They're like, no, you just have to look through his letterbox. Just like there's nothing in between. They're hilarious. Um, but yeah, again, I really want to do a Prospector as a kit model. I think that'd be
That would be
such an
cool.
amazing kit model. But
Yeah,
again, we have the issue that we just don't have the technology at the
totally.
moment in house to do the screen, and it's why we want to get into casting because I want to be able to cast that piece for the bubble canopy. Um, but yeah, it's. Uh, yeah,
Technology is evolving. I like to believe that technology, what you're talking about, is evolving really quickly. And that's why I said to you in the PM that maybe next year there'll be different technology available. I don't know.
there will, and I think, I mean, with 3D printers are getting better and better. The issue is, like with any technology, it's like these printers are 4 grand each.
Hmm.
So if it's if it improves a little bit, is it worth spending 4 grand on? Probably not, until it's perfect, and then that perfect printer might come out and it's 10 grand, or the like proper commercial printers are really expensive. Um, when we did the Grey Cat, the screen on the Grey Cat is cast and it is flawlessly good. The issue with it is that each one of those screens cost £10 to make. So a fifth of the sale price of the kit is just that one piece. So it becomes uneconomic to have it farmed out to do it because otherwise you're having to add another 20% onto the kit price just to have that screen really clear, which is why on the Arrow we 3D printed it and coated it because it was a much smaller piece, it was less important. But it was the you know the you know the bit of the kit that we weren't 100% happy with. But again, it would have cost us £12 each to have them cast, so it would have been another £12 on top of the cost of the kit. So it's difficult to find that balance. So we've bought all the kit now for doing casting. It's still sitting in a box downstairs, so I need to get around to it. So the next kit the kit that we're currently finishing off at the moment, um is hopefully going to be the first that has an in-house cast screen, and then we'll probably go back and redo the Arrow ones and contact everyone who bought an Arrow and offer to send them out a cast screen for it. Just I say it's we know it's not perfect. When we don't pretend that we think it's perfect, it's not. But it's the best we can do at the moment, without adding a huge amount to the cost.
That's very
Um,
generous, by the way, as far as customer support goes. I
well, I
think.
mean, this is the thing. We try as a company. We're gonna to be able to sell the type of product that we do, which is really sort of high end, sort of upper price bracket product. You have to have really good customer service that goes with it, and that's not easy to do when there's only two of us and we're trying to cover all these job roles all the time. So sometimes we do drop the ball on that. And I think especially with shipping times being longer than we want, because it's really hard to predict how long it's going to take us to do stuff sometimes, and there's only so many hours in the day, and we can't, especially at the moment, we can't bring more people in to help. So things take longer. Things always take longer than you want them to. So we are rubbing up against that, but yeah, we want people to have the best product that we can give them, and we always do that. And as we make things better, um, we will try and update people's stuff that could have been better. I think the other thing is we're also trying to we are trying to reduce the price of the kits as well, and a lot of that's us bringing more processors in house. Like we've now brought the foam packaging in house because we've got a laser now. We're doing all the acrylic bases and etching and stuff ourselves on the laser. So that's something that we don't have to have done externally now. So if we could get these screens cast, that would be epic. The it's we're going to do some videos as well of the casting, which should hopefully educate people a little bit onto what the issues are with clear casting. Um, which in summary is trying to get them bubble free is very difficult. You have to degas the material and pressurize it when it casts, but it's only got a pot life of 9 minutes. So you need to mix the resin together because it's two-part. You need to mix it, degas it, pour it into the molds, close the molds, put the molds inside a pressure pot, close the pressure pot, and pressurize it in under 9 minutes.
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
ideally under 7 minutes, because you want to give it a couple of minutes for the actual pressure to push the bubbles out. Because if you just make it to 9 minutes, it's pretty much on its way to being set. So you can get resins that have longer pot lives, but they're not suitable for thin parts. And this is the issue. Casting thicker bits of clear material is a lot easier because the screens and things are only about a millimeter thick. There's only one, or there's very few types of resin you can use that will do things that thin, and they all have very short pot lives. I don't know why that is. Something to do with how. And if you use ones that aren't suitable for that sort of thinness, they don't set, they don't harden properly, and that's because resins are exothermic when they cure. They give out a lot of heat, and they actually require the heat to cure. So when you've got a large mass of resin, it creates so much heat inside itself. That's a lot of the curing process. Whereas you've got very, very thin parts, you actually have to preheat the molds to 100 degrees Celsius for 4 hours before you cast in them so that they're hot enough. But even then, only certain resins will cast clear, optically clear parts in very thin sheets without being really brittle. So it's a bit of a dark art that we're sort of having to try and quickly teach ourselves. And then you've got to sort of think, well, okay, so 4 hours to heat a mold up. Okay, not very many minutes to actually cast it, because you don't have very many minutes. Then 6 hours in a pressure pot to produce one part effectively. So you're going to have a mold that can at least take 25 of them,
Right.
and that's a challenge in itself, because you've got two options. You either make 25 masters and polish each master, so you've got to make all of them as good as each other, or you make one master and then take casts from that and then make new molds from that. It's like, well, okay, are we starting to get a little bit of creep of shrinkage by a tenth of a mil or something like that, and then they're not going to fit in the model perfectly because that hasn't been accounted for. So you've unfortunately there's no perfect solution to doing this. The ideal would be to have them injected, um but again we go back to just to have the screen for the arrow. A mold for that was 11,500 pounds, to have just for that one little screen.
That's on an
um
injection molding machine?
yeah.
What kind of I'm sorry, what kind of injection molding machine? Like what kind of weight is that? Is that like a 40-ton machine?
I have no idea.
No idea. I'm
No
just
idea.
wondering the size of the mold for that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a small mold. I mean, interestingly, Formlabs are printer people. They do a high temperature resin that you can actually print injection molding molds, um, for prototyping more than anything. Um, but we'd have to get our own like small injector and stuff, and then it's just like, it's yet more equipment to buy,
On
and I'm not 100% sure you'd get an optically
Yeah,
clear result out of it. So
and like I think about how many parts you actually have, and I'm like,
mm,
that's how many molds you're gonna need. And I'm like,
yeah.
considering the market size of Star Citizen, at the very best, at very best, 2 million people maybe
Yep.
in the whole market of Star
At the
Citizen.
very best,
If
exactly.
you can capture 5% of that, if you're lucky, you're
Yeah.
not looking at a lot of models.
No, that's it. I mean, genuinely, our assumption goes that there's a million people. So there's 2 million accounts, say a million active people, and we're aiming at 1% of that to regularly buy our models.
Yeah.
Because we're a niche within a niche within a niche. So where Star Citizen is a niche, people who want physical models that are into Star Citizen is a niche within that. And then people who enjoy kit models and building them themselves and painting and stuff is a niche within that. So we're up against it from that sort of thing. So having Star Citizen's backers double, treble makes a huge difference to us because it takes us from that nearly break even point to actually profitable.
Are you
Um,
running a Patreon right now?
no,
I wonder if you could look into that because like some people do that just to sell products. And it's like, oh, if you want to buy our new product, be a Patreon member and you get exclusive deals. And then you can rope them into a subscription because that's a more
yeah,
reliable income.
we have thought about subscriptions, a subscription service for our stuff, and it's like we're trying to work out at the moment, a the time to set it up, but also what we give our subscribers. And it's things like because they're limited edition models, they're all numbered. So what we did want to think about doing is say, right, okay, maybe our subscribers can basically pick a number, and not in the top 10 because that's a separate little competition-y thing. But say they always wanted number 71 because that was the year they were born or something like that. And it's like they could basically, as a subscriber of that tier, they get number 71 of every model basically put aside for them for a month. And it gives them a month to buy that model, and then they get 71. So they could collect number 71 of every model without having to somehow be the 71st person to buy the kit. Exactly.
It's a
So
good way to do it. Yeah.
so it's a way that we're providing, because the other thing with a subscription service is it's only profitable for us to do it and put the time in if we are selling something that isn't costing us a huge amount of money to produce.
Of
Otherwise, we're
course.
losing money on it.
Yeah.
So it's finding cool things like that that aren't a lot of time for us to do, but mean a lot to the people on the other end. And therefore, it's just a cool service that we can provide. So trying to find things like that. Um, an actual subscription basis to get the models themselves is quite difficult because we don't know how much each model is going to be until we finish designing it, and we also don't know how frequently we're going to put the models out. We have a plan and a goal, but that can be thrown off by things like COVID, and we've got another job that's come in that we can't tell anyone anything about at the moment, and that's going to take up a good month of my time over the
That's
next
true
six
too.
weeks.
Yeah.
So that could push some of our kits back. I hope not. I hope we can sort of catch ourselves up because we've sort of banked a few kit models pretty much, but we don't want to release them just yet for reasons. Just for variety, basically, we get a bit boring if we're releasing very similar ships all the time. But we've got a few in the bag for later on. But there's a few that we want to get done first, and there's some very popular ships that people have been asking for a long time that are in the immediate roadmap to get out. So we do want to get to them as soon as possible. But because the kit models are yet to be profit making, we do have to take on other jobs that are definitely profit making
Yeah.
in the meanwhile. And it's that unfortunately have to prioritize guaranteed money over the Star Citizen merch at the moment because I say we are still building up. We're not at that stage of profitability yet.
And
Maybe
like when the Star Citizen market is there, you'll be ready for it.
no, exactly, because most of our quote unquote profit just gets thrown back into buying more equipment to try and bring more stuff in house to try and lower the cost to try and make it more sellable. Because if we can reduce the cost by 10%, we might increase our sales by 20%. So it's um, there'll be a there'll be a tipping point of people going. I mean, I think most of the people that buy our models buy more of our models. We have an amazing group of people and our little mini community that are into our models, and we get a huge amount of repeat custom, which in my mind is the best thing in the world because it means that yes, okay, our models aren't cheap, but they're obviously worth it because people come back to get more. And I think that's the best sort of hat tip to we're doing an all right job in that people come back and buy more models from us. And I don't think it's out of pity. I hope not. But I think people are impressed enough to keep buying them. So every new customer that we find in the verse is potentially, a good 10 sales over the course of the next 3 or 4 years. So every new customer is very valuable. Um, and we know we need to do more on marketing. We still turn up at events and hang around on social media, and people haven't heard of us. Um, and or if they have, they don't know we do the kit models, and they don't know the kit models are official and licensed and all this sort of stuff. So we have an awfully long way to go. for that. But again, comes back down to there's two of us.
All of us, every one of us, we all have a long ways to
Uh,
go.
oh,
And
indeed,
we
and
really have to play the long game.
we do, and I say it's just that we need to. I say this year's been so weird because everything is just. I say with the events industry just being put on permanent hold, it's so difficult to get a foothold of where you should be pointing your efforts at the moment. Should we be looking for? Because I mean, this is the thing with events industry. You're always kind of prepping and looking for clients and stuff a year ahead of an event. But clients don't know whether they're having an event in a year's time. So like this time of the year, coming up to sort of Gamescom-y type, this would be the last stages of building a Gamescom stand for this year. You'd already be starting to talk about Gamescom next year,
Yeah.
because a lot of these builds are kind of 18-month builds for big stands. So you plan way ahead, and that's why a lot of the big events like E3 and stuff were cancelled really early on in all this, and why some people are like, oh well, there's loads of time before CitizenCon. It's like there's not.
There's
Citizen,
not.
CitizenCon should be, well on its way of production planning now and build starting now, and it's difficult for companies to invest that money because deposits now have to be paid to stand builders and stuff, because otherwise they need to buy their materials. They need to get, be assured that their staff are getting paid for the job. So usually you're talking 50 to 70% deposits for trade stands and lighting rigs, all this sort of stuff. Companies quite rightly aren't going to put that money on the table because no insurance company is going to pay out if the event is still cancelled because of COVID. So when events do start coming back, there's going to be a really big, either really shoddily put together events for 6 months, or just even when they're allowed to do. Oh, thank you very much. I've been offered another coffee. Even when events are allowed to start up again, there's probably going to be this sort of 6 to 8 month lull of not really very many proper events anyway, because it takes that long to get anything organized and built and produced. So I say we're in this sort of limbo in that no one's committing to anything, and all the plans that usually are happening now, just no one's doing it. So it could be, God, it could be 2 years before we start getting Gamescom events back properly um, at this stage, which is quite scary, really. Um, it's it's an awful lot of money gets pumped into these events that just, I assume, is sitting in people's bank accounts at the moment, and companies are just sitting on it and just waiting and waiting and
Yep.
waiting to find out what they can spend their marketing money on. Um, which will be crippling them, because you spend marketing money for a reason. People don't buy your products unless they know about them. So um, yeah, it'll be interesting. It will be interesting. I mean, hopefully things like CIG's events will be the first to come back, because logistically it's a lot easier to plan your own event than to
That's
plan
true.
an event like Gamescom.
Yeah.
Um, so I am confident that CitizenCon next year shouldn't have any real issues with this, because they don't need to plan 18 months ahead. They can plan 6 months ahead, minimum. So 6 to 9 months would be nice to get that event off the ground. So next year shouldn't be affected, hopefully. But I say next year's Gamescom is still pushing it, um, which is not good. And hopefully events do come back. I know that sounds a really daft thing, but a lot of the things that these sort of things do is they actually put people off doing events indefinitely
Yeah.
because
I,
of the risk.
I
You know.
think back when in Manchester, Disco and I were competing on like who is more sick at the time. Seriously, we
Yeah,
were just like, and you see the videos of Disco and I losing our voices, because
yeah.
we were sick or whatever. And I'm like, thinking back now, I'm like, I don't know what the future's gonna be like, because it's impossible to avoid. Because like
Oh yeah,
the CIG execs are constantly moving between offices, so they're always on an
yeah.
airplane. I'm surprised that like there hasn't been any issue with that, to be honest. But
Yeah, I mean, I think Erin will probably be the person that's suffering the most. I assume he's in the UK, but you see, he spends about 30% time over in the States because all the family's over in the States. So he does a lot of toing and froing. There will be less travel after all this, just because plane tickets are going to be so goddamn expensive. Um, I mean, we're Virgin Galactic. Branson's may not survive this, so that's half. That's one of the major carriers to the US gone. Um, Airports are going to be a nightmare. I mean, when you think a couple of months ago, the UK were debating over which airports we were going to expand, and now we're pretty much debating whether we're going to close Gatwick or not, because more and more airlines are pulling out of it. So, I mean, the cost of air travel will skyrocket after this. So, whether companies like CIG can warrant planing their people around the world as much as they used to, probably not. Um, and that affects events as well, because obviously if we're doing events in a foreign country, we charge the cost of hotels and planes, so we become more expensive for the same job, because planes go up in price. So yeah, and I think this whole experience has taught some companies that they really don't need an office. Everyone can just work from home. But I think CIG have proved that they can do it from home, but it's not as good.
I think it applies like that for every office though. Like I work for Shopify and
Hmm.
we're having a hard time with that as well.
Hmm.
So even though I've always been a remote worker, there's not a
Yes.
lot of remote workers necessarily, and it's like the engineering teams are suffering. So
Yeah, and I think creatively CIG will be suffering. It is being in your spare room, because I mean most of these CIG employees don't have a plush office and work, cool work environment and workspace to do this stuff in. So they're in their spare room or in their living room at home. That is not the same creative space as working
definitely
in an
not.
office surrounded by other people doing the same, like working in your teams towards the same goals. It's nothing like it. It's, I mean, we're slightly different in that we've always worked from home, so we have a very much work rooms within our house. We have offices in our house that are specifically set up for designing and stuff, and that's fine. But all these people that work in such close knit teams. I mean, one thing I did think about was, and I should ask Graham actually. Didn't think about this. The sound team presumably aren't doing anything at the moment
That's
because
true.
I suppose they can work from home a bit, but I mean, they spend their entire days in these amazing sound booths and stuff at the office. It's not the same as, presumably they have those really expensive sound booths for a reason. So they must be suffering a huge amount at the moment, not being able to do that. And then you've got the animation teams; they don't have their mocap anymore, so they'll be doing all that without mocap. Um, so yeah, they have an office for a reason. That place must cost them a fortune. They're 4 offices, but they have offices for reasons.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of practicality, even IT support. I don't even know how they're working that. I mean, we think that our versions of this game are buggy and crashy. You wait till you see what they're like on the dev branch. Do you know what I mean? They're constantly having to go around and fixing hardware and software issues all the time. Um, Oh, sorry, I'm just reading Kaz. Apparently,
Yeah.
Graham's posted that they're a new sounds team. Awesome.
Speaking of speaking of cows, who is cows? Who is Lila? Who is Westbrook Drew? And who is James? And what is it about him that he identifies as a stormtrooper?
I can answer some of those questions.
Okay.
So Cal's is my other half and is the other director of JRDF. She is the person that tries to make this into a business. That is a challenge. Mainly reining me and Westbrook Drew and James in, because we're all creative people and want to run off and build full-size Stargates and all this sort of stuff when that's not a profitable thing. Yes, the Cal's corrals cats. Leela is Cal's daughter. She is currently living with us because her school is closed. She lives down with her dad in Portsmouth, which is very south of the country. But she's hiding up here in Scotland because there's no school at the moment. Westbrook Drew is another member of the JRDF team, a sort of the volunteer arm. Couldn't do it without them. And he is another CAD designer. I got him involved basically when we had the Kraken project land on our desk. because with 3 months to build the Kraken and the Dragonfly and all the 3D printed models, I'd never 3D printed anything in my life. We just bought two 3D printers. So I got Westbrook Drew involved because he was already 3D printing Star Citizen ships on his own printers, and that seemed to be a really sensible thing to do. Was get people who already knew what they were doing in to do that. So that's how he turned up. James, very similar. He's not a CAD designer as such, but he's a programmer, and he helped a huge amount at CitizenCon last year, is when he started working with us. Um, the guy that we still use, but used before for years previous, is a guy called Stephen the Geek, who's based down south in the UK. But he he booked a cruise in November, thinking there's definitely no way that that's going to clash with CitizenCon. Of course, it clashed with CitizenCon, so he couldn't come to CitizenCon last year. So we recruited James, who was working with Game Glass at the time, to help us do some of our UI stuff for the Covlex units and the GSS units, and he's been helping us immensely since then. He's working on this amazing bit of software for us that assists in our model drawing efforts from a programming point of view, which saves us a huge amount of time, and we're sort of improving, constantly iterating on that to sort of make anything to save the time. Which we're trying to reduce the amount of time it takes to turn a Star Citizen ship into a physical model by a couple of weeks, hopefully. And he's doing a huge amount to help us with that. Other people I should mention that are part of the crew: Engineer, so same as Westbrook Drew. Previously, so Engineer did the big Hammerhead and the Reclaimer models, and the more recently the Mining Tick. And we've also got Miserable G, who's one of our painters. We've also got Brett from Nightly Gaming, who's one of our painters. So we've got a cool crew of people that work with us on all this, and one day we'll make it one we can actually pay wages to people. That'd be awesome.
You're doing a heck
But
of a good job so far. So
we're getting there. We're getting there, and I think this is the thing. It's there's a big risk that it's to compare ourselves to. Oh god, I've even forgot his name. He's that unimportant now. Rex Rexzilla.
oh yes, yeah.
It's that risk that we might have to do what he's done, which is to actually make money in this game. We might have to jump to a different game, and it's that whole Star Citizen's amazing, but will it be profitable enough? Do we have to jump to a different? Do we have to jump to a Blizzard, or to do merchandise for someone bigger? And I hope it's not the case. I hope we can make Star Citizen work, or do things alongside Star Citizen as Star Citizen grows. But it's one of those damn things. It's like Star Citizen is amazing because it has so many ships in it, but actually, from doing model ships point of view, that's a pain in the ass, because there's so many ships to do, and everyone has their own favorite ship. Whereas you look at something like the Expanse or something, there's only a handful of ships, and let's face it, one main ship that people would buy a model of. So you can do one model and sell it to 80% of the fan base. Star Citizen, every model we do is only probably 5% of the fan base's favorite. So every ship we do only has a very small potential market within Star Citizen. We have so many people that go, I love your models, they're amazing. When you do the X, I will buy it. It's like, cool. That's not even on my list at the moment.
Yeah.
God damn it, I even forgot about that ship. And
That's
it's like,
why I think getting them into a Patreon subscription instead is like a more socially accepted way of collecting money from people. And then when they're ready, like you have the ship ready for them, you can be like, hey, this is our ship of the month or something.
yeah, no, that's
Ship
true.
of the
And
quarter.
it's the and that's the thing, and it's difficult because a lot of people look at our ships and go, they're amazing. I can't afford to buy all of them. And some people do. So some people do want to, to get all of them, and will just buy every ship we do, and they're amazing people. But I know that there are. I mean, I probably wouldn't have bought personally. I probably wouldn't have bought the Dragonfly or the Arrow just because I'm not a fan of them in game. I would have bought the Max. So it's that whole. I know from personal point of view that certain ships will appeal to certain people, and there'll be some people like, as soon as that model comes out, I will have everything with a Kraken written on it, or I want all the Kraken related merch, or what have
I'd like
you.
to have a 2-foot Kraken. Just
Yeah,
saying.
I think it's probably one of the models I will have.
Hi.
Cal's hand. Um,
Will it come
I
in
will.
white?
It'll come in whatever color you paint it.
Oh, I paint it. Excellent.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Our models are kit models, so you get to paint them yourself.
Okay.
And that's the other thing we're trying to get a head round at the moment. There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, well, I would buy your models, but I'm not a model builder. I can't build them and paint them." Um, so we're trying to find a way. My camera's just going to focus.
Yeah, I messed up.
Focus, W.
You're just a blur in our memory, I guess. Something like that. Weird.
Oh, that's so weird.
I wonder if it's the green screen that's causing that.
No, it's these Logitech cameras just sort of decide they're going to out of focus. There we go.
There it goes.
Out of focus every so often. Um, yeah, we want to try and find. So we're not allowed to sell built and painted models. We're only allowed to sell kit models. But CIG have agreed that what we can do is basically have a web page within our site directing people to third-party painting people that paint our models. So like Warhammer and stuff, there
Yeah.
are people who professionally paint the models. So you'd be able to go onto our website and then follow the link to say Miserable G or something like that, and then you discuss with them what colors you want it painted, basically, and then they deal with it. So they've bought a kit model and put it together and painted it. So CIG are fine with that. So hopefully we can get some of that off the ground and find some painters around the world that can do our models for us. And that's better for us because we're not having to deal with that to and fro of what color do you want. So, it's a lot of admin when we're not the people painting it. And they can just deal directly with the painters and get their perfect paint job done for them. So that would be our ideal for that. I don't think we'll ever go down the route for Star Citizen, certainly, of doing trying to convince CIG to let us do fully built and painted models because they'd just be so expensive.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like the paint job on some of the ships we've had done for the box art is 2 or 3 days worth of painting. So you sort of think 2 or 3 days salary for a skilled painter is a lot of money, so it's I think that's the thing. A lot of people forget we've been spoilt, inverted commas, spoilt by the prices of mass produced stuff
Yeah.
painted
That's true.
by people on very low salaries
Yeah.
in foreign climes, and it, we can only compete against that by being so much better in the quality side. We're never going to compete on price. There's no point. And this is the thing that I try and get through to people that, oh, well, if you did this, you'd be a bit cheaper. It's like, there was no point us trying to compete on price because we will never win that battle. We would have to cheapen our product to the point where it was awful just to get even close to their sort of price. And then we'd actually have a lower quality product than them. So the only thing we can do is just make it as increase the value of our products, make them better value for money by not by decreasing the price necessarily, but by just getting even more for your money. Going forward, more personalization, cooler boxes, cooler bits to the models and displays and all this sort of stuff. So that's the only thing we can do to be competitive, is to just make the models better and better for the same money rather than trying to make them cheaper. We're not trying to make them cheaper. We're trying to bring the processes in-house so they cost less. But the actual process is still the same. We're not cheapening the process. We're just trying to reduce the costs going to other companies. It's the only way I can see that we can do that. Until, as I say, the issue is when it gets to the point where you could mass produce these products, we wouldn't do them. I've no interest in it. This goes back to where we started. It's just like, I am a maker. I am never going to outsource the making of these models because why would I bother doing it anymore? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what's in it for me? Um, I would just be sat at a desk doing nothing and just designing stuff. And that'd be really, really dull. So it's the only way I would go to injection molding is if I could afford my own injection molding machine. And I can't see that happening um, anytime soon. And I genuinely don't think that's the way that this sort of manufacture will go. I think we're in this relatively sweet spot where we're sort of riding the wave of 3D printers being just good enough now to do this. They've still got a ways to go. The surface quality still needs to get a little bit better for them to compete against the sort of Citadel miniature quality, surface quality. But they're not a million miles away. And we're only probably 2 or 3 years away from printers that are spot on for doing this sort of work. Um, so yeah, I think we're in the right. We've chosen the right path. Um, Scalability wise, printers scale very very well. We can up our production 100-fold in weeks just by buying 100 printers, and that's a relatively easy thing to do. The only issue with it is that you don't actually get a particularly big reduction in cost for producing on more printers because the resin doesn't really cost any less. You're not changing your production method to a cheaper mass production method. You're just scaling the production method you have currently. So there's not a lot of money savings to be made, but it is a scalable product. So we shall see. I might get really into casting and then want to do everything with casting. I
That's
can't
cool.
see it though. Casting, I think, takes longer than printing to do it well, anyway, and it's very limiting. Even with silicon molds, you're quite limited onto what you can cast compared with printing. So we'll see. But as I say, for clear parts, it's probably the way we're going to go. Um,
I think that's a pretty good spot to end it actually.
yeah,
Because
no,
we
absolutely.
started with talking about you as a maker and finishing with you as a maker.
No, that makes sense. Oh, thank
Um,
you so much for having me on and just talking shit in the morning.
yeah,
it's,
well, thanks for coming
um,
here at 4 in the morning. That's amazing.
yeah, that's quite all right. I'd say it's the Star Citizen community is just so awesome, and it's just like it always blows us away. The depth and the breadth and depth. I think that's the best thing about this game and community is it has both depth and breadth, and there's room in it for everybody, and there's loads to do for everybody, and I'm glad that there are people that love what we do as well. Yeah, we'll just keep going, see what we can make of it, and say fingers crossed we get events back one day.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to do more Star Citizen events. They're really good fun.
Yeah, I agree. And but the toy business is a good business to be in. That's what Star Wars
Yes.
is what Star Wars is. So,
No, indeed.
if you have to evolve your business to accommodate COVID or whatever illness, then so be it, I guess. But
No, indeed. There are worse things to diverse into. So
yeah,
yeah,
don't
it's
start up
not
a
it's not too
restaurant.
shabby. No,
Whatever you do,
no,
not a good place to be.
no. I say we're relatively flexible from a making point of view. We should always be able to carry on making stuff. So yeah, we'll just carry on. And they say if events come back, they come back. If they don't, they don't. We'll just have to, work it out as we go along.
So if there's anybody out there watching or listening, check out the JRDF website. Buy a model. What is the website? The URL?
It is jrfabrication.co.uk.
And it's not.
Um,
I saw it's not a Shopify site, so I would feel irresponsible to say Shopify is a great platform for doing
well,
e-commerce.
it is actually. We actually use Shopify for our e-commerce backend.
For your back end.
Yes. So we have Shopify buy buttons
Oh,
on
I
the
see.
pages.
Okay.
Um, be really boring, but because it integrates with our new logistics people.
Okay. Well,
Um,
that's why I originally suggested is because Shopify is really good with
yeah,
logistics.
yes, it is. It is very good. The reason I didn't move the website over is we'd already built it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Buy button's fine. Buy button's fine.
Yeah, we'd already built it in Squarespace. Like, I'm not moving it again. I refuse.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we do use Shopify. It is a lot better for an e-commerce standpoint. But because we were on Well, we're on Squarespace's internal one, and then a ShipStation plugin for the logistics, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah. Oh, I know
So yeah,
ShipStation. I've worked with that before.
it was fine, except it only in the UK. I think it's because it's an American company. I think it probably is a lot better in the States. But it only integrated with about a third of the logistics companies in the UK. And when we wanted to move from the people we were with, because they were useless and really expensive, to the Royal Mail, who we're with now, ShipStation just didn't integrate with it at all. So it's like, nah, it's not going to work. So we shopped around and found that Shopify did integrate quite well with it, and then we worked out a way of integrating Shopify with Squarespace. So it's working well enough at the moment. There's a few niggles with it. Maybe something I should talk to you about. In that I'd like it to display more than one currency, please. And it's the whole thing. It was like,
Not through
because
buy
most,
button. Yeah, that
yeah,
won't work
that's
through
it.
buy button.
It's so annoying because like most of our customers are not in the UK. We only probably have, even though we display all our prices in pounds, maybe 5% of our customers are in the UK. So it's a price that's irrelevant to most people that buy our product, which is very infuriating.
You know, you
Um,
can. I don't know how much what did you use, like WordPress or something? No, Squarespace. Is it still using
mm,
Squarespace right now?
yeah.
I mean, you could just link right to your product page and just use the Shopify cart and checkout. Then you get the currency stuff to go with it. And you know, if you ask me or if we work out a deal, I could just throw some paint on it to make it look like the old website. I could do that like
Yeah,
within an
yeah, we'll have to
hour.
talk about
It's
that because
easy.
it would be quite good to do because I say we have the issue that it's like people go on our websites like, yes, but how much is that in Aussie dollars or
Yeah.
Canadian dollars? Is like, I don't know, Google it. It isn't a great response. So yeah, no, that'd be cool. I'll have to talk about that because
Cool.
that would it's our biggest criticism of our site at the moment. So nice,
Easy
awesome. Thank you
peasy.
so much.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for stopping by, and anyone out there, check out your website, buy a model, and yeah, thanks again for waking up at 4 a.m. to watch this, and
No,
thanks to everybody
quite all right.
who watched and participated, and tune in for next week. Cool.
Absolutely. See you then.